Hey guys, what's up? How's everybody doing? What's happening? Happy Sunday to you. Cheers. That's me. So what happened this week? Well, California's on fire. That's going on. It's hard to breathe. Seriously, it's like headaches and oh god, it sucks, man. But feel bad for folks getting displaced and the all the animals, and it's just like, I don't know, it's brutal. But you gotta figure this stuff out, man. It's getting crazy, as well as in Oregon and Washington State. So hope everybody in those places is staying safe. What else? What happened this week in the world of guitar? I put out a video on Friday with the Ombre, which is sitting right there. It was really fun to do. I tried to get as close as I could to the old ZZ Top tones, because that was the main thing that I didn't hear yet coming out of other folks. Some other videos up on the internet and stuff. Most people were kind of playing clean and, more mellow. And it's like, I felt like, the real thing John was going for, because it's kind of it's a dirtier amp, it veers in the, it wants to rock. It's not a deluxe reverb or something, or that type of tone. So I tried to talk in the video a little bit about what's the difference between the amps that came right after, the brown amps that showed up in 61, 62. Leo was always trying to go cleaner, I think. And so with the preamp circuit and those amps, the later amps, it's a more sophisticated preamp, more sophisticated EQ in some ways, where it would kind of subtract gain actually, and the mids were scooped a little bit more, and quite a bit more, and so there's different sound, but it's interesting stuff. And so I really had fun doing that. And if you listen to the video, there's no EQ on anything, which is one of the only times that I've in a mix that I haven't had to add just a little bit of high end or subtract a little low end. Or I was like listening to it, and next to ZZ Top, I would go back and forth between the two. God, it's right there. Like, it sounds really, really, really good. The guitar tones and just the overall blend of everything without having to do anything other than just mic the amp. So it's a great little amp for blues rock, and it really is. I could see using it with as long as the drummer's not too loud, and maybe like a pub or something, like a small live gig. If you were playing that style, that and going for that kind of tone, it'd be just great. And it feeds back, and it'll feed back when there's almost like no distortion. Just like slightly. Little bit of grind going on, and then you just get notes just take off and play, and the individual notes are so fat and round. It's just really fun to play through. So anyways, Grizzly Adams says hi from Paris. I missed that place. Hope you're well. God, I'd love to get back there one of these days sometime soon. Really would. I miss France, and had so much fun staying over there for a long time. I could live in that country. It's a great place. I don't know if I'd live in Paris, maybe, but I could. I really like it. It's a really, at least I felt like a really livable city. Some people might find it maybe crowded, or I don't know, but I really enjoyed it. But I really like the south of France. Such a great country. Braxall's asking if I got the Eddie Kramer Superior Drummer pack. I'll check it out. I haven't. I love the Zeppelin sounds, that. So, I've already got some pretty good ones. I feel like this, actually the kits that come in Superior Drummer, I feel like are really good. There's a one in particular. It's like a kind of a Bonham kit that sounds great to me. So if you're saying it's better than that, even, then I should check it out. And in Stephen Slate drums, there's some great Zeppelin kits, 3 or 4 different, like sort of later Zeppelin, earlier Zeppelin sort of kits. So I sort of feel like I've got it covered, but I'll check those out for sure, because if Eddie did it, and I like Eddie, so. I don't know if you ever saw, I did a Tim and Pete's guitar show with Eddie Kramer. So I got to interview him. It was really fun. It's actually before I ever had a pair of reading glasses, he lent me his. And that got me thinking about it. I was trying to read these questions I'd asked, and I'm like, I'm really having a lot of problems here. And he took off his glasses and handed them to me. And I said, oh, Oh, wow. That's a whole nother world. That's fantastic. So anyways, we had a lot of fun, but he was really fun. If you haven't checked out the Tim and Pete show, it got split into 3 episodes is the only thing, because Tim at that point was in YouTube jail for having posted a Prince cover, and he got a copyright strike for that because Prince is hardcore, but all he was trying to do was teach a Prince song. But anyway, so the episode got split into 3. And in the last one, Eddie Kramer's actually like tweaking effects as I'm playing. And I'm like, oh my God, this is what he was doing with Hendrix. This is so much fun. He's like, I'm just playing, and I'm in Tim's studio and I'm playing my old Strat, and Eddie's like tweaking the fuzz and the Univibe and turning the knobs and stuff. It was a real thrill. It's fun. Arthur's up there in the top chat, in the super chat, and he is more than generous. And he said, top of the Rocky Mountain Way. What's up, dude? I spent the last year a Rocky Mountain Way. Somebody said yesterday that the tone of the amp reminded them of 70s Joe Walsh, which I could totally. I mean, I think a lot of the, like for instance, Hotel California and solos and stuff. So I think a Tweed Deluxe, so slightly different sound, but really similar. And I could totally see the Joe Walsh comparison with, you know, it for that type of thing. That amp is fantastic. You know, it's not a metal amp, but it's a bluesy rock, old school, good times, you know. Simon's up there in the top chat. He's somewhere in Canada. Thanks, man. He says, you really nail those amp in the zone. Thank you, man. He says, Ombre is definitely going to be my next amp, or Tweed Deluxe. You know, the Tweed Deluxe is a little more on the soft, saggy side, and then this one's a little more Marshall, a little stouter, and with the, you know, fixed bias and 312 AX7s in the front end, and it's just a little bit more in that direction. So that could sway you, you know. If you want a little more Neil Young and a little more just sag, and it's probably even dirtier. But this amp is a little louder and bolder, and might even feed back more because of that, you know, because you get it up louder, so it responds with the guitar. It's more powerful for sure. It's more like probably 18 watts or something, as opposed to like 12 for the Tweed. So get you a little bit more on club territory. DEIGOV is up there in the super duper chat. Thanks, man. He says, I bought my first Strat. Can you please recommend me a pedal for a 6505 plus to make it more Strat friendly? Aiming for classic, clean, breakup tones. Well, I would use the channel 6505. I think probably has a cleaner channel, right? Strat friendly. You know, I would run the crunchy channel clean. Something like one of these, maybe. Oh, I can't even. Here, I gotta. You know, like that, like one of these guys, or you know, a nice compressor that you can then run in front of that channel, and this will pump up the Strat single coils, but run that channel clean, and then this will give you a little bit of a like, you know, how a compressor kicks the front end a little bit if you get the output gain up. That's what I find with the Strat. I love a compressor, you know, but this one can be really transparent because it's got a dry through. So something like this, or maybe like a Timmy into one of these guys into the channel, the first channel set clean. This is a great pedal for stuff like that. Really warm. It's like, is it dirty? Is it clean? It's somewhere in the middle. That kind of pedal, much less metal than the distortion that the amp will have, you know. So I would try something like this into the channel 1 set clean. This is a great pedal. If you guys haven't heard one of these, they did a nice job on these. It's really a good version of that, you know, the Timmy. GR says he loved the Ombre demo. Thanks, man. Really great amp. I mean, you guys will have so much fun, honestly. If you get one and you're in the, if you live in a house and you can turn it up occasionally, that kind of thing, and just jam, so much fun. You'll just end up playing for like half an hour, 45 minutes without stopping, just hitting notes and letting them feed back. It's like so great. Really nice amp. It, you know, every now and then you play through an amp that just has that connection between the guitar. It feels like there's not very much going on between your fingers and the speaker. It's just like a short path A to B, and it's a direct connection, and you're right connected to it. And that's the way the Ombre feels. And it's, you know, when I play, I remember feeling that way about my Comet. when I first played a Comet. It was like, oh, I hit one note and it took off into feedback. And I was like, oh, this amp's really great. Jim Kelly amp also, very similar experience. And it's kind of similar to playing through an old Marshall or something. You know, like a Plexi. Modern Vintage is up there in the top chat. And he says, Pete, how would you compare Sir MLs versus V60 versus 63 in a Classic S? Well, the 63, if I'm not mistaken, is the ML, because they've changed it's a little confusing, I know, but they've changed the name of the ML to the V63. I think they're slightly higher output than V60. The ML, certainly the standard. I'd have to ask John, but there's probably more info on their website. I like them all. I mean, I don't really know if I can describe the difference. Like V63s, I use the V63, the low peak ones, V63 LP, or sorry, V60 LP, in a number of different guitars. And they have a very, with the lower peak, they've got the greasy mids thing going on. But I don't know how to describe if there's a huge difference between them and the 63s, to be honest, because I've got the 63s in other guitars. And then it's like, well, is it the wood of the guitar, or what is it if it's slightly different, right? I don't hear a massive difference, to be honest, but maybe I need to compare more closely between a V63 and a V60 LP. Now, the 70s are quite different. They're way more scooped sounding. They're a lower output thing. And 54s as well would be, you know, a different thing. But probably the most similar are the V60 LPs and the V63, I would say, in the tone. And I don't quite know, like I say, like, is it the guitar? Is it what's the difference? And I like them both. I have the V63s in my red sort of super strat with the humbucker and the bridge. And they sound great in that guitar. I could use, I sometimes I just spec a guitar, like my white guitar, I've got V63 LPs in. The red guitar, I put the other ones in. They both sound really good to me. My green, it's got V60 LPs in it, the green S. So I don't know. Yeah, I wish I could. They're the closest in the line, I think, and I don't know exactly even what the differences are. I don't know if I helped you at all. Oh, any thoughts on Two Rock amps? I've only played a couple Two Rocks. They're loud and clean, and then the Fendery hot rod, you know, Fender meets Dumble. I don't even know what the one I played was, but it was nice. It might have been the John Mayer one, maybe, or maybe it was a Dumbley one. But I plugged into it at. You can actually hear me in a video playing through it because it turned into a Tim Pierce video. It's a Tim Goes Amp Shopping at LA Vintage. It's sorry guys, it's Cliff's place here in LA Vintage Guitar, I think it's called, in Burbank. And Tim made a video there where he's amp shopping and ended up taking home I can't even remember what he got, a Park or something. But we played, like, I stopped in and we played through like 10 different amps, and you can kind of hear us just jamming in that video and stuff. That's the only time I've played a Two Rock. It was cool. Sounded good. Loud, clean. Marchy 21. Marchy 21 is up there in the super chat. He says, used 2019 PT standard model black landed last night. Awesome. So many things that make it great. Finally, a neck humbucker that is not muddy. Exactly. Great sound and playability. Great job, Pete and John. Sir, thanks, man. The black, I still just love. The black with the red back. I mean, I love the look of it, and, you know, the aesthetics and stuff, I think. The one I play the most around here is the red one lately. I have a red one. I've got a gold that I need to put the new bridge on still. And other than that, that's the only reason why I don't, because it's a really resonant, really good sounding guitar. I just want to get the new, you know, the Wilkinson trem on there for the ultimate tuning stability and all that good stuff. But I'm so glad you got that guitar. Thanks for trusting and picking it out, and I hope it gives you years of rock and roll pleasure. My knees hurt says that Ombre demo was great. Thanks, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Also, what else did I do this week? I did a video for a Black Star MIDI controller that's kind of neat because it's got USB out on it. So you can hook it up to plugins and stuff. And I was controlling Logic with it. It was something I've never, ever, ever tried before, is switching software in my computer as though it was a guitar effect. And it works great. It's really fun. Yeah. Who else we got here? The Fossil 76 is in Poland. How awesome. Man, I've only been to Poland once. It was a long time ago. I remember because it was when Michael Jackson passed away. I was playing somewhere outside Warsaw, I think, that day with Chris Cornell. So that's the only time I've been to Poland. I remember it. But fun show. I remember it was just a Chris Cornell show or a festival. But I remember getting off stage and hearing that Michael Jackson had passed away. I remember going to get like coffee or something at a it was like a nice, you know, pretty wherever we were. It's kind of out in the woods or something because it was like a festival. I remember getting coffee somewhere at the stand, and there was like really pretty Polish girls serving coffee. I was like, this is all right. Yeah. I had fun there. I did. You had a question, sorry, and then I just went on and on, romanticizing my trip to Eastern Europe. More analog pedals than there are loops in the switcher. How do you hook things up? How do you hook up a noise gate pedal in the switcher? So I have a noise gate pedal only in the loop on my switcher where my drive is for my lead sound. So I'm not really a big fan of gates. So I'll carry a gate around with me on the road, just in my, you know, like kind of in my guitar vault thing. There's a drawer in there where there's a bunch of accessories and crap. And I have a smart gate from MXR in there that I just carry around in case I need it at a certain gig. I've got the Sentry one from TC as well. And then I've got the Rocktron. Oh, it's right there, a guitar silencer. This thing's pretty cool. It's not perfect, but it is pretty cool. This is a gate, and it's got hush noise reduction in it. And the hush is downward expansion. So it basically kind of cuts high end, I think, is what it does. So as you turn this control up, it starts cutting high end. And you can hear, so it's like buzzing, buzzing, buzzing. And then you hear the buzz kind of go like that. But then you'll play and you're like, oh, it's not quite as sparkly as it was before. Now, if you're on a high gain sound, maybe that's fine for soloing, you know, because it actually can almost like warm up the top end a little bit. But if you're on single coils and you're trying to clean up the sound a little bit, it gets a little, it just takes away a little bit of the sparkle or the magic. But if you're in a really noisy environment, maybe that's an okay trade-off. And then this is a gate. So you turn this up. So it's downward expansion and gate. So it's a little more sophisticated than most noise gates. Pretty cool pedal to have around. And anyways, so I'll carry a gate like something like this to run in front, like almost first pedal in line. Unless I had a fuzz, I would put it after that because it'll screw up. This is active and it will screw up the interaction with the fuzz. But other than that, close to the front, and I'll use it if I'm in a really noisy club or venue or something like that. Now, the other gate that I have on my board is in loop 5 on my switcher, along with my Archer, which is, you know, Klon style drive. And it comes after that pedal. So only when I switch to my lead sound and the high gain channel on my amp, that will come on. And then I've got a gate in case, you know, I need it for my lead sound. So that's where I put that. As far as the other pedals go on the board, I'm just going to grab one more top chat here, and then I'll keep answering your question there, the Fossil. Modern Vintage is up there in the super chat. It's about to disappear. So he says, have you put a Wilkinson on your Classic S? I have one on my white Classic S, yeah, with the 6-screw bridge. So I have tried that. I just did the individual saddles. Do you think that's something John upgrade on an S? That's something John upgrade on an S. Or does that bridge change tone more than the Godot? You know, in my opinion and estimation, the tone of the Wilkinson is better than the vintage bent saddle 6-screw Godot style bridge. I changed the saddles. This is why I say that. I changed the saddles only on my white Classic S, and the tone of the guitar improved. I was like, whoa, like, you know, like it sounds better. It's like more resonant than with the old saddles, and it stays in tune way better. I'll show you if you want. I just have it right here so you guys can see. Just grab it. That's this guitar. So, and I guess I was kind of a guinea pig for this because John didn't know if it would work. And I said, no, it works good. This guitar's still, look at it. It's Olympic white and it just gets dirty but anyways, so you can see the screws, the saddles or the Wilkinson saddles, but that's the old Godot plate, you know, the 6-screw situation. And I bought, or they sent them to me. Wilkinson sent me a set of saddles to try, and I put them on, you know, I just pulled the old ones off and they were directly fit and they fit perfectly and they work perfectly. So if you can find them, I know guys have been having trouble finding them, but I know they had a reverb store, and I just don't know if that's still going or not, or what's happening. But anyways, if you can get them, these are great. You know, put them on there. It increased the tuning stability of the guitar dramatically. This is a great guitar, this one. I don't use it that much lately, but it's a really terrific guitar that it has a roasted alder body. So if you look at the wood, see how dark it is? It's actually alder. It looks like it's mahogany under there or something, but it's roasted alder and then a roasted maple neck. It's got a little bit of flame in it even. It's pretty cool. And I should use this guitar more. It's a 9 to 12 radius compound and 21 fret, right? And this has the V60 LPs in it and a Thornbuckle Plus in the bridge. And it's a really cool guitar. The one thing I want to change is the vintage tuner. See how it's got the slotted tuners? I want to put locking on there. Since I did this, I'll just go all the way with it, and then it should stay in tune really good. I was answering the question for the fellow from Poland, and he was asking if you got more analog pedals than there are loops on the switcher. I would put certain things together simply, and you just have to figure out what you're going to group and what you don't mind turning on and off. I mean, like things like like a fuzz and an overdrive could go in the same loop, and then you just have to remember when you turn on that loop, when you go from song to song and you're set with your band or whatever, like, oh yeah, before the song starts, turn off the fuzz and turn on the drive. So when you hit it for the chorus or the solo or whatever, it's going to be the right pedal. You just do that stuff. Sometimes I'll make notes on a set list when I've got situations like that going on, like remember to turn this on, turn that off. You know, I'll put an asterisk even, and that can be enough to remember. Just one little like reminder. I hate my hair right now. It's so screwed. I'm not going to cut it. I'm waiting to grow it out. It's like driving me bonkers. This sucks right now. It's like growing out an undercut or a short haircut is a difficult thing to do. It seems to be taking all year. I hate it. Chris Quinn is up there in the top chat. He says, don't you find certain speaker go with certain amps? Totally. Yeah, for sure. I built a Trainwreck Express copy that needs a greenback type speaker. High watt Lex Fanes. Yeah, the Fane thing. I don't know. I still have yet to figure out the Fane thing. Like, I just don't. I have no experience with them, I guess. But whenever I hear the Fane thing, I'm always like, I think I like Celestions better. I think I like high watts with Celestions better. I think I like Celestions in a high watt cabinet with a high watt, you know, as opposed to Fanes. But maybe I just haven't heard the right Fane or something. Okay, high watt likes Fanes, Soldano V30 or Eminence. I like Soldanos with greenbacks too, but I know what you mean. If you're going for a more modern, you know, metal or something, the V30 can be the right choice for sure. I like Soldanos with greenbacks. I think they sound really good. I've got one here now. That one that's down. Well, you can barely see it down there in the corner. Or Eminence. Eminence. I don't know much about. You know, are you talking about like the Eminence, the Governor, and all that? It's basically like V30 style, right? What have you found? Okay, so a V30 that's nice. If you guys haven't tried it, is that Warehouse Vet 30. That's the speaker that Sir guys used for a long time, and it sounds like a warmer V30. They made a V30 without the spike. It's nice, you know, for an option, a V30 option. Yeah, I mean, speakers are and cabinets are such a huge overall part of the sound of an amp and what we think of as that amp. Now, it doesn't mean that the amp can't sound good through something else, but if you take I always say, if you take a 410 open back, you know, with the P10s or whatever are in them, you know, like a you know, basement cabinet or a super cabinet with you know, the CTS or whatever, you know, the Fender style, it sounds like that amp a lot. Or if you take a 212 with blues, it sounds like an AC30 a lot. And it's just because the speakers have such an overall influence on what, you know. So if you were to play a bassman through a 212 with blues, it's like, oh, kind of sounds more like an AC30 in veering in that direction. It doesn't sound like it, but it goes in that direction. And maybe that like messes with our head, but it can be a good sound. And sometimes those weird, you know, mixtures or, you know, of cabinet and speaker can be a really cool thing. So, I mean, you guys, if you watch the Ombre demo, you saw me play this guy through its internal speaker and then also through a Marshall 412 with greenbacks, and you hear both sounds in the demo. So maybe that's a good, you know, the closed back thing is definitely tighter and with the greenback, but it's also a great sound through its internal speaker and sounds terrific like that. I actually ended up, most of the tones in the video for the Ombre were the internal speaker because it just sounded great, especially with the M160 mic, the ribbon mic. I was thinking about this on the way over here because this is what I think about. I was thinking about how combos can be really great for lead, like for big fat round single notes and soloing. A combo can just be, like I say, I mean, when we think about the tones on Hotel California is a perfect example of the guitar solos, Tweed Deluxe, big fat round single notes. But there's when I say big fat, it's actually there ain't that much low end going on. It's like more like 200 hertz, and then it kind of drops off after that because it's like a combo. You know, go to a closed back cabinet, the mids scoop out a little more. It can be a tighter sound and all that, but for solos, maybe it doesn't poke as much. So that's why, you know, AC30 Brian May guitar sounds, you know, so great. Like, you know, let's put this down carefully. The combos can just be a great thing. So if you do rhythms with a closed back thing, you know, some kind of 412s or whatever, and then you really want a solo to poke through, it can be great to use a combo sometimes. It just has that, you know. I think Jeff Beck, you know, you see him sometimes using those Blues Juniors and stuff like that. You'll see one up there on stage, and I think that's kind of his thing too. It's like for the mid range and the, you know, the body and the mids of a single note. Sometimes a combo is a really great thing. So, yeah. So it's the type of cabinet, I guess, you know, whether it's closed or open, maybe as much as the speaker. Both those things, yes, have an overall contribution to guitar sound so much. And we think of that as part of a certain guitar tone just as much as whatever amp is driving it, right? I think. I'm way down in the bottom of the chat, or in the top of the chat, so I'm moving all the way down here. Randy says V30s need break-in time. Yeah, can be helpful for sure. I was so excited to play my Soldano Hot Rod 50 Plus through my blackback cabinet and was disappointed, says Chris Quinn. That's interesting. I mean, it's quite possible that Soldano voiced it with V30s, just like he used 5881s and kind of, you know, the whole thing was like, it's like a formula. Many times it's a formula. Like John, you know, actually the Ombre, he always kept talking about using it through a 412 with greenbacks because that's what he thinks maybe Billy did. I don't know. I don't know what he was actually basing that on, but or if it was just a hunch. But you know, he has this theory that that's, you know, what was going on, and it does sound great through a 412 with greenbacks. It's awesome. I mean, it's, you know, really, as I state in the video, it's getting in a Marshall direction as far as 312 AX7s in the front end, fixed bias, long tail pair phase inverter and all this stuff he was telling me about that are really close to, you know, a lot of things similar to Marshall. Not exactly the same as what came later, but it was definitely, you know, similar. Let's see here. Roxy is asking a question about the PT15IR. Best, easiest way to capture audio video with a backing track to enter the Sir Mateus Assato contest. I guess the Sir guys with Mateus are giving away one of his guitars. You have an iPhone, an iPad, and a Mac Air. I think you can get GarageBand for iPad, and you can get audio interfaces. So, yeah, I mean, I think you could use some sort of regular audio interface that's got a 1/4 inch or line in for your iPad, load that track in GarageBand to jam over or something, and then record the 1/4 inch out of the PT right into GarageBand and probably add a little delay or reverb in the program. It'd be easy. There's all kinds of interfaces for, I think there's Apogee has them, as well as, you know, was it IK Multimedia, I think, has some for, maybe some of you guys can recommend an audio interface for iPad. And you've got a Mac Air too. So right there, you could get I think you know, USB interface or something. That there's so many of them, you know, PreSonus, or just an inexpensive one to get started. I'm not sure the ports on a Mac Air. Is it a Thunderbolt 3? Maybe if it's a newer one. It's a good question. I'm not sure exactly what a Mac Air has, but anyways, I would look at look at Focusrite and PreSonus and some of those, you know, the inexpensive ones. And yeah, you're going to totally be able to get rocking. Just, I mean, the Mac Air has GarageBand on it already, so you don't even have to buy a DAW, I don't think. So that'll save you some money. You can just get an interface, use GarageBand, start with that. It's a great place to start with recording. It's fine, you know, works good. HGO says A-Type and Greenback in the same box, Pete. Could be cool. I hear a lot of similarity actually between A-Type and Greenback. A-Type is like it kind of sounds like a broken in Greenback in many ways to me. It's got a really nice, it's soft on the top end. Anytime you're trying to remove fizz, if you want an amp to be smooth and you remove fizz, you know, the A-Type is great. And it does, especially in a combo, have that kind of American thing. But I really like the A-Type, and I'm surprised more people don't use it, actually. I did a video of it if you want to hear it. You know, it's on my channel. You can check it out. Somebody's texting me. Who else we got here? We got Sheldon. He's in Edmonton. He says, hello. What's up? Oh, Ben Coombs is helping me out here. Hi, Ben. Thanks. He says, Miss Super Chat. Michael had a super chat and I missed it. Sorry about that. I don't know how I missed it. When I played with Chris Cornell, what did I use live to get the guitar solo tone on Arms Around Your Love and nearly forgot my broken heart? I only did nearly forgot my broken heart with him once at the Roxy. A little bit of video showed up from that show actually recently on the last show I ever played with Chris. It's on YouTube, but it was in January 2016. If you search it, you can see it, but that was a fun one. And then Yogi mainly played, maybe that's the gig you're talking about, because we did, I don't know if you've seen video from it or not, but we did Arms Around Love, I think, and we did Nearly Forgot My Broken Heart. Yogi used to play the solo on Arms Around Your Love back in the day, like, but yeah, I did it at that one gig for sure, maybe a couple gigs that I did with him. Because we did 2 gigs at the Roxy that were like these kind of private things, and it was a completely different band. It was Chris and I, but then everybody else was different than the touring days back in that decade. You were asking what I used. I mean, it was PT100, but probably my Archer into the, you know, recently when I played on my, I guess the Archer into the channel 2 of the PT100, my standard kind of lead thing. Ape Shoot says Celestion V-Type ? I wonder if you're asking if that's the speaker in the Ombre. It is. Or what do I think of it? I think it's good, actually. I mean, it sounds great in the Ombre. You can hear it in the video. I think it's good. It's a good all-round Celestion tone. I don't know how else to describe it. When I heard it, I was like, oh, it's not exactly a Greenback, and it's not a V30, and it's not an H30, but it kind of sounds like a Celestion. You know, and it's a good, like, it's not like a, oh, it's too much of this or too much of that. It's just good. It's a really good balanced sounding Celestion. If you want a Greenback, I would go Greenback. If you want a V30, I would go V30. But if you want a good British sounding speaker, the V-Type is actually pretty cool, I think. You know, a good like facsimile of all those sounds put into one. And I think that's probably what they were going for with it, you know, in a speaker that doesn't cost too much. I think it's good value for the money. They're not expensive, and it sounds really good, you know. It sounds great in that amp. They seem reliable as well. I never hear about problems with them. Robert Valdez is up there in the top chat. He says, you have 2 compressors on your studio board, the Ego and the Unit 67. That's true. I'm guessing you use the 67 for overall enhancing the tone and the Ego for leads. Not exactly. I actually use the Ego compressor on my clean sounds mainly. It's for, the typical compressed, clean stuff, but I rarely have it on with distortion. The Unit 67 is kind of a dirty boost with a little bit of compression that I use for, like, if you listen to the tone, let me think. I don't know if there's any of the classic rock show songs up where I used it. I used it on Won't Get Fooled Again, which was the last song of the set. It sounded really great. The Unit 67 into the Bogner Blue in the kind of the plexi mode, the low gain mode, into the clean channel on my amp was a great combo. I use the 67 it's the tonal enhancer, and sometimes for leads, like it's got that Rangemaster style boost on it. For those that don't know, the Dry Belt Unit 67 is they do some really unique pedals. It's a combination of a Rangemaster style mid thing with a bass and treble EQ as well, a boost, and a 1176 style compression, all in one pedal, but very simple. The compressor is like a switch and a knob, more or less. So it's not as sophisticated as something like this, let's say Cali 76, which has all the attack and release and all that stuff. But the Unit 67 is like an enhancer that you can kick on in front of. In many ways, when I first got it, I was like, this could be an always on kind of thing, because it just seems to pump up the guitar signal a little bit, give you a little bit more of everything, and then you can enhance the tone here and there, the mids, the treble, the bass, whatever you want to do. Add a little compression, and right there, your guitar just sounds a little more So think about like the Who, like that. It sounded great for that stuff to me. Like in front of a clean amp, you could just hit the amp, grind it up a little bit, get a little compression, and it sounded like this clangy, cool, So it's the enhancer, whereas the Ego is typical straight up compression. There ain't like a lot of, I'm not using it to drive or to alter the tone, although there is a treble switch on it, but it's almost to bring back the high end that's lost with the traditional sort of pedal compressor circuit. So I hope that's helpful. Let's see here. Live to Play Guitar says, can I email you? There's an email there's a contact form on my website. I'm sometimes terrible about returning email just because I'm completely swamped with life, but you can hit me up. It's on PeteThorn.com. It's the easiest way to do it. It's easy to remember then. Let's see here. Banjard says, I'm thinking about getting a Schecter Sun Valley Super Strat. Saw you play one some time ago. What do you think of it? I don't remember that. I don't think it was that guitar. Never tried one. I'm sorry. I wish I could help, but I don't know that particular Schecter guitar. A Schecter guitar is something I've never owned, although I, grew up, like my first guitar hero was Pete Townsend right around the time he was using those Schecter, the T's. So that was, I had an affinity for Schecters right away, like from my first days of playing. Loot 89 up there in the top chat, he says, beautiful day here in Chicago after a week of sunless, rainy weather. Dude, we could use a little sunless, rainy weather here right now. I so wish it would rain in LA. Take care of these fires and stuff, and the smoke is out of control. But anyway, no questions. Have a beer on me. Thank you, dude. Appreciate that. I will do that. Get a cider later on you. Thanks. What else we got here? Just working my way back through the chat. Gary says that he put 2 Creamback 75s in a Mesa cab with 2 V30s, and that sounds pretty massive. That can be a nice combo, like a V30 and an H30 style speaker. I still prefer my Marshall with 2 Greenback and 2 V30. That sounds way large. Yeah, a little more difference in the speakers. And if you put the Greenbacks in the top and the V30s in the bottom, that's the Friedman recipe that he's done for many years in his cabs. It's a great thing, Then you get a really, they're a little more different than the Creamback 75s, which Creamback 75s are, yeah, it's a closer sound to a V30, halfway between or something, I guess. It's just different, but the warmth of the Greenbacks, or the woody quality or whatever, and the more mids, and then the V30 in the bottom is more of that cutting up or mid spike. It's a different thing than the woody lower mid-range warmth or whatever of a Greenback, I think. So Greenback 75 is just kind of everything. Sounds very full to me. It's like a you know, it's a balanced speaker in a way, really balanced to me. Okay. Is the Boss GT100 still a viable effects unit, says Cletus. You know, it's funny. It's like, is a Tube Screamer still a viable overdrive, or is a Plexi still a viable amp? You know, it's, if you get good sounds out of it, then it's viable. You know, it could be your jam, you know, GT100. It's, I had a friend of mine, an instructor of mine, a great guitar player and producer, Brian Hughes from the Edmonton area. He used these Korg guitar effects processors forever, and it was from the 80s. It was called a I'm not going to remember the name of it, but it was a multi-effects Korg thing. My buddy Al from Canada used to use them too. They were kind of a specific guitar. It was a rack mount thing, and Brian got used to using that. And I remember recently he was trying to find something else that he liked that he could go to and use, and he had trouble like trying to find something. He's gotten so used to it that it was like, you know, and this is a digital Korg thing from the 80s. If you, the thing about getting a good, you know, piece of gear like something like a GT100, if you get deep inside it and then you start to tweak it and you get it to the place where it sounds really good to you, and then, you know, and you get more and more of the years, you really get inside it, then it can be hard to get away from it. And it can be like, it's not only viable, it's like difficult to move away from. You know what I mean? And that could go for a Helix, or for, because people will start to rely on certain sounds that are, as you get inside these pieces of gear, you know, an Axe FX or a Helix or whatever it is, or it could be in one of those old Ibanez multi-effect units from the 80s. If you use something and it becomes part of your sound, then it becomes difficult to find anything else that'll give you that. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. You know, it doesn't always have to be this march forward, I don't think, or change, you know. And sometimes with the digital stuff, that can certainly be, you know, we can fall into these like constantly upgrading. I mean, it's got to do with our culture, maybe like constantly upgrading the, you know, there's a new software release out, do the update. It's like, you know, I don't know. Leroy says, take my money, you mighty guitar playing bastard. Thanks, Leroy, up there in the top chat. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and insight. I don't know, man. I don't know how much knowledge I have. Maybe I do. I don't know about, you know, I don't know. It's silly. You know, I can tell you what this slide sounds like compared to a metal one. I got that knowledge, I guess. This is a Joe Perry slide, by the way. I like these. And I clearly have memory of, I'm a hack-ass slide player, but this is the slide I like. It's real warm sounding. They're ceramic. Let's talk about it for a second, since I just brought it up as something I can describe. They're the most friendly of slides to me, the ceramic. It's like the least offensive tonally, and kind of the easiest, like to get your hand, get your finger around, get around your finger. But I remember they used to make them with a more rounded edge. And I don't know if you know, what happened, if they make them overseas or where they get them from or what, but it was like they used to have kind of a more, and I love that one. Just, I don't know what it was about the rounded edge. And I remember clearly my last one that I had like that when I was playing with Cornell somewhere. And I remember using it for Black Hole Sun. I used to drop it after the, you know, and then I drop it, and do that part. And I dropped it one night and I watched it hit the ground, roll off the front of the stage, and go in the pit and break and shatter. And I was like, because that was the last one I had like that at that time. Little did I know I would never find another one with that rounded edge. The next ones I just got some more from Dunlop, and they all had this square edge on them. I was like, they're not the same anymore. So, but anyway, I remember that last one breaking. Live to Play Guitar is up there in the super chat, and he just sent me a super sticker. Dude, thanks. You guys are too kind. Really appreciate it. I do. Sometimes I like a metal slide, or a light glass slide can be cool. On a guitar with low action, like if you're trying to play your regular shredder guitar or whatever, and you need to play a slide part, sometimes getting the lightest glass slide you can find will, you know, because it's lighter and it has less of a tendency to hit the frets. So if you've got low action, the heavier, you know, higher action, heavier strings you go, you can get into heavier slides, and it'll doesn't matter as much, you know. But if you got to play slide, it's a little tip. If you got to play slide on a guitar with really, really low action, I find a light, you know, one of those Ernie Ball or, you know, and they're not like the greatest slides in the world, maybe for tone and stuff, but if you use a fair amount of gain, they can work just fine, and you can get away with using your regular shredder guitar with a low action and stuff, and it won't bang into the frets. So that's a tip, something I have found. Steve says, "Hi Pete, great show. Any more Tim and Pete? As I love those. I would love to do another. You know, we just kind of fell off of doing it, and Tim's been making he's gone in a certain direction with his videos, which is great because he's killing it. And you know, I guess we did our show for a long time, and then like a couple of years or whatever, and then he sort of like having other people that he, you know, like he gets together with this person or that person, does a, you know, maybe that's like, I don't know if it's, you know, but we did do one a while ago. He was on my live stream not that long ago, and that was really fun. So we'll do more together, I'm sure. I texted him the other day because I saw a video he did recently about the H9, which sounds great. His jams in it are awesome. And I was like, that video was awesome. He hit me back and stuff. So thanks, you know. So I haven't seen him for quite a while. When was the last time you played in Saskatchewan, and with who? I think it would have been with Melissa Etheridge, probably 2012, something like that. It's been a minute, in quite a while. Kind of post 2012. The thing with me and touring is I got all foreign gigs. So 2013, I did a French tour that I ended up over in France for like 6 months. So only gigs in France and Belgium and a couple in Russia and Switzerland. And then 2014 was my first year in Japan. So it was Kyoshi all year, and 2015 all year in Japan. Those 2 years were all Japan. 2016, I got another French tour with Michel Polnareff, so French artist. And so then I was there. 2017 and 18 were on and off with Kyoshi. We did a full tour in 2018. And then 2019, my tours, I didn't really tour. I did clinic tours, though. I went to Asia and went to Europe. And then in 2020, this year, January, February, I did the Classic Rock Show in the UK. My point, no American touring in all this time, you know, really, or Canadian. It was all these foreign tours, like any of the 4 or 5 tours I did were all over those years were all overseas. So I hadn't been to New York in 6 years or something, which is crazy because I used to go every few months on tour. You'd always find yourself, or Chicago. I don't remember the last time I was in Chicago. Clinic tours a little bit. I've traveled America, you know, in Canada, gone up there and, you know, to, you know, Toronto and my hometown, Edmonton, and Calgary and stuff. And I was in, you know, Pennsylvania and, you know, parts of the Midwest and stuff, I guess. But for the clinics. But other than that, man, I haven't been on a tour bus in the States in a long time, just because of all this foreign tours, which I've really enjoyed, but I do miss it a little bit. How to not get overwhelmed writing your own songs, says Live to Play Guitar. That's a great question. Don't put too much pressure on yourself is number one. Like the pedal demo thing has been really beneficial for my writing, because when I'm making a pedal demo, I'm like, well, this isn't my magnum opus for the greatest, you know, I need to write a song that really represents you know, like, you know what I'm saying? The pressure you can put on yourself when you're writing a song. Well, it can't suck. This has to be my personal statement. If it's a pedal demo, first of all, I've given myself a parameter. I'm going to make some music with this box right here. I'm going to plug it in, see what kind of sounds it makes, and write a little thing. And I'll plug it in and get a sound, and the sound inspires the part. Well, maybe get some drums up and stuff and do this. And before you know it, you've written something and you haven't painted yourself into some sort of corner thinking, I need to write something amazing. It's like, it's more like I've worked with it's almost like tricking yourself, you know, and it works really well. Like to not get too, you know, caught up in your own BS. Like, because the second you start second guessing yourself is when you shoot yourself in the foot. I remember reading this book in the 90s called Writing Down the Bones, and that was a really good book. It was for creative writers, and also, but I thought it applied to music. So that could be something good to read, but Writing Down the Bones, it's called. And it was all about, give yourself the freedom to just screw up and write whatever. Like, don't just be, it's almost like being a kid painting. It's like, don't edit yourself so much, you know, and see what comes out. And that's when you sometimes get to your best stuff, when it's free and unedited. So check out Writing Down the Bones, maybe, if you want a kind of a more, you know, sort of broad sort of creative recommendations. But don't be so hard on yourself, you know. have fun. That's the main thing. I try and have fun, you know. That's, you know, I'm not taking it too seriously. And then ironically, by taking that approach, you get to, because music isn't supposed to be this hard thing, I don't think, you know. It's expression and direct connection to your, you know, your soul or whatever. It sounds silly, but it's like, you know, you're like, the more you limit that with like, oh, it has to be this or it has to be that, and that's when you screw yourself up. People want a raw connection to just something real, you know, creatively. It's not to say you should phone it in and just do whatever, but it's to say get out of your own way is all I'm saying, you know, and listen to what the little kid inside likes or whatever, you know. That's I feel like I'm 12 years old when I'm writing. I mean, I'm just having fun, you know. It's like I'm playing, you know. You're playing guitar, but you're playing like in the sandbox, you know, making a I also read this great book that my friend Frank recommended to me many years ago, and it was called Pleasure. And it was all about how as we get older, sometimes we screw ourselves up by like, you know, through like addiction or like, you know, because you got all these, the fun of life can slip away a little bit, like the carefree, you know, when you're a little kid and you don't have so many worries, and you know, you get older and you're like, what's that song, you know, that came out a few years ago? Wake up when you need to make money, you know. That can get in the way of your creativity. Remember when you were a kid, the book Pleasure, coming back to that, was about like how kids play in the sandbox, but they're not necessarily laughing. Like as we get older, it's like, oh, I want to have some fun. I want to let loose. You drink or you do whatever and you act like stupid and you get, I want to laugh. I want to like whatever. When kids play, sometimes they're in the sandbox, right? Making a sandcastle, but it's serious. They're not laughing, right? You know, sometimes they are, right? Having fun. But sometimes they're building something, like building like Lego or whatever, or like you're building something. It's kind of serious, you know? And that's the way music is to me. Like you push all the other stuff aside. I'm going to make this sandcastle right now, or I'm going to like, you know, build a thing out of Legos, and it's going to be badass, right? And you're just like totally immersed in that and pushing all the other stuff aside, not worrying about what anybody else thinks. Is what you think. I'm going to make the most badass Lego thing right now. And that really is the core of writing songs for me. When I completely go into that, and if you can tap into that, then, you know, maybe a good exercise is get some Legos. Don't worry about music. Make the most badass Lego thing you can make and get into that and remember what that felt like, you know, because as an adult, if you can tap into that, then you got it made. That's how you write songs to me. That's serious. You can do, you know how time ceases to exist and you forget to, like, your parents are calling you for dinner or whatever. And you're like, oh, I just want 5 more minutes to do this. Leave me alone, you know, and you're like, but it's serious, but you're playing and having fun. That's writing songs to me. Anyways, tell us about Jose Aerodonda mods, moving into a technical guitar thing. Garrison, how to get that tone using pedals. I don't think it is that possible. It's maybe possible. Okay, so at the core, a Jose mod is a gain boost in front of a plexi. So if you've got a plexi style Marshall that's good and healthy, and then you put a gain boost in front, pedal, you say to yourself, why can't I just boost with a pedal? Well, you can, and you might be able to get similar, but there's something about having that gain boost be a high voltage tube in the amplifier, because that's what a Jose is. There's other things that he did, but at the core, he put a gain boost in front of a plexi, a tube, sometimes 2 stages of a tube parallel, or 1 stage of a tube, but it's essentially you're plugging in, you're hitting a tube in front that's distorting, driving into the plexi. And there's a lot of low end cut out of that tube. So coming out of that first gain stage, it's lean. Sometimes you would cut high end too, and essentially it would end up like a mid-range boost in the front of the amp to kick the front. So when you think of that, maybe a Sir Coco might get you, because it's a mid-range boost, right? That's not too, you know, it's fairly pointy in that one. I would actually try a Coco, to be honest, if it was any pedal more than the other pedal that kind of reminded me of a hot, like is the space like a hot tube boost, because that's what it is a space charged by Crazy Tube Circuits. That's a great sounding drive, and I've got another one here to make a demo of. Actually, he's got a new version of it. I remember trying the original one and thinking like, this rules. Like, and it's a real tube boost. I don't know how close it'll get though, because there's something about, and this is something that's easily demonstratable, like because say on my Germino here, which basically has the Jose thing in it, it's got the one volume here that is push-pull. So that turns on and off the gain stage, and you can just really hear what it does in front of the plexi circuit. And you know, it's like kind of there's some similarities to using something like an original OD1, a Boss, because they cut so much low end and it's creating overdrive. So, you know, that was an 80s sound too, like a JCM 800 with an OD1 in front is a classic. Or was it ST1? The original Boss overdrive. Remember the 2-knob one? And it's kind of Tube Screamer-esque, but a little bit its own thing going on. They were really lean, like they kind of thinned out the sound a lot. But if you run that into an amp that's kind of a little bit low endy, like it was a great formula for 80s tone, basically. You can hear the Boss Waza overdrive in a video I did a number of years ago in my old studio space. That's kind of got that sound. I ran it in front of the SL68, and you can hear the 80s thing going on. It makes it hot and sizzly in the front of the SL68 and leans out the low end a lot. And so it's tight. And so the Jose thing has this aggressive, you know, like, but tight thing in the front of the amp. Like I said, a Coco boost maybe might be the closest you could get, because it's a mid boost. It's not a treble booster. It's a mid boost in front of it's a different sound. Yeah, something like that. Maybe an EQ might, like a Boss GE7 with all the lows cut, and then like the Eddie thing, really. I mean, he was using an EQ. Sometimes you'd see he'd do the mid thing, kind of that. I wonder if that's where Jose got the idea from, because he used to use the Boss GE10 sometimes, right? And boost, or he'd use the MXR, and maybe he thought, oh, I'll just put a tube right in front of the amp and then cut the, you know, trim all the lows out of it and stuff, and then it won't fart out too much. Anyways, but that's the core of it. Okay, so then the other stuff that Jose did was master volume, so that you could, then you're getting all the drive in the front end of the amp. Now we can cut down the volume because we've got overdrive without cranking the hell out of the amp. Of course, it changed the sound a little bit, putting the master in there and lowering the volume, but we're getting into the 80s now, and it's part of the sound, I guess, like that more preampy thing. But the Jose thing, even with there is something really, I don't know what it is. So who knows what it is, but it's like you put it in the amp, and even with the master, it still has this plexi kind of thing that's not, maybe it's just as you start at it, like something like a Soldano, now you've got another gain stage in there that you added to the whole thing. So now you're really getting into preamp drive as opposed to the EL34, you know, power amp combining with the, you know. But anyways, the Jose was a master. Most of them were, the design, the master came after the EQ circuit in the amps. You'd have all the gain stages in the front, the EQ, and then the master volume right after that. That's the standard Jose mod. He used to do a thing, though, where he would put the master sometimes. This is all in the Steve Vai video, by the way, with the amp, but you can hear this. But you can switch the master sometimes pre-EQ or post-EQ. And it has a very different sound. The pre-EQ one scoops the mids out a little bit. It sounds a little more metal or something. And I think some of the Cameron mods would use that. The pre-EQ with the gain boost in front was some of the, you know, it's a very gainy kind of metally sort of sound. The most open plexi sort of is with the master after the EQ. And then last but not least, one thing he would do is if you wanted more drive, because he's trying to eke everybody drive as he could without adding yet another gain boost or whatever, to the amp, was the Zener Limiter thing. So that's like a you know, after all of that, at the end, kind of, you know, end of the preamp chain, I believe, was the Zener diodes, and they would act as a limiter, and it would kind of make the amp feel more saturated and add a not like, it's a different thing than hitting a pedal or something. If anybody out there has a Friedman BE, it's the sat switch. That's what that is. It's switching to Zener Limiter, and it just makes the amp a little more metal once again. So that's the Jose thing. Those are the main mods. The main thing is the gain boost in front of a plexi. And that could change depending on what he, how he implemented it and stuff. A couple different things, but that's the main thing. Gain stage in front of a plexi, and something about a tube in front of a plexi that's got a certain sound that sounds different than any pedal. High voltage in the amplifier, Quick question, says Jake up in the top chat. He says, I have been using my older Axe-Fx Ultra primarily for a few effects like the Mega Tap, pedal options to replace H9, etc. Yeah, an H9 would be good. I mean, it's the thing about a Axe-Fx Ultra is still it's a very, even though they're older, it's a very, very sophisticated effects processor with a lot going on. Like powerful, so you're able to do a lot of things at once. So you might find you need two H9s to do some of the things that you were doing. But yeah, the H9 is, I mean, it's an amazing thing to have for sure. Other things you could use is, how about the FX8 from the Fractal folks? Since you're used to the Fractal sort of, thing, if you want to put something on the floor, that might be an option. A HX effects from line 6 would be another thing. The effects are a little different and stuff, and it's some would, I think they're great. Some would say like the Axe effects is a little more, like upscale or something, the reverbs or whatever, I don't know. But there's nothing, the Helix, I'm quite a fan of those units, just their simplicity and how small. The HX effects is tiny and works great. I mean, something even like an HX Stomp might work for you, along with some other pedals to do, simple delay and reverb and things like that. So that's one way to go. Other multi-effects, I mean, there's always the Strymon route. That's what a lot of people do. They get a big Sky and a Timeline and a Mobius to do all that stuff. So you see a lot of boards that have those things, or maybe an H9 and then a Mobius and a Timeline or something, Brisley Adams said Michel Polnareff, fellow I toured with. He says, our French Elton John and Billy Joel, kind of. Yeah, that's how I always describe. I don't know how to describe him. I say, I don't know, like Elton John, but there was the 60s thing he did that was kind of very like Mamas and the Papas or something, or, a little more like a folky Peace and Love sort of thing or something. And then you had like the almost like Do You Think I'm Sexy Rod Stewart era guy getting in there too. So anyways, it's, you know what I mean? Michel Polnareff, he's an original just as much as Van Elton John is, isn't he? He's like he's so unique, and most Americans aren't going to know who I'm talking about, but he's a legendary artist in France, very unique and distinctly French. And a lot of people, a guy there described him to me once as being like so uniquely French, and that people there love that about. I was so surprised when I was touring with him. He was 72 or 73 years old when I was touring with him, and the crowd was very mixed age for for an artist that was so in the older end of things. There was kids there, and we would play festivals sometimes with like French pop rock bands, and we would headline or be second to headlining in front of like 60,000 people, and I thought maybe it was just my assumption that he would have a mostly older crowd, and then but they loved him. The young people love him, and it was really cool to see. He's really unique, great guy too. God, he's funny dude. He's the master of like the quick one-liner. Polnareff is genius. Oh, sorry, I lost who that was. Emmanuel. Yeah, he's kind of a genius, isn't he? He's a really interesting dude. He's a full-on lifer French rock star, and I find these personalities fascinating. So last time I saw him, I went to the Beverly Hills Hotel, and we had lunch by the pool. This is maybe last year, like early last year, and we had a nice lunch and sat out and stuff because he was in town for the day, and it was really fun. I felt very fancy. Eris says, hey, Pete, have you tried barefaced audio cabs? I haven't tried those. I have not. Steve Howell says, hi, Pete from the UK. What's up? How you doing? Bobby says that he runs an Angry Charlie, which is a nice JHS pedal, the Andy Timmons, great sounding pedal, at 18 volts. And it's so much better. Do you find generally 18-volt pedals sound better? Anything ampy, which is that pedal for sure, to me, usually sounds better at 18 or with the voltage doubler kind of thing. Like, for example, a Bogner Blue has the, the internal voltage doubling. You can switch it between 9 and 18. I like 18 volts on anything that's supposed to sound like a dirty Marshall, because it just has more of an amp-like character. The lower voltage thing always has a bit more of an overdrive pedal sound. Now that could sound great if it's a tube screamer and that's what you're going for. If you wanted to sound like a dirty JCM 800 or a Plexi or something, though, 18 volts seems to work. I totally agree. Yeah. L. Scott Music, that's Lauren, says Dave Friedman had some interesting things to say about the H9 on the Tone Talk 5 top delays video recently. Yeah, he was probably saying it's noisy, right? Because it is a little noisy. The Eventide pedals can be a little noisy in front of a gainy amp, which Dave's are. So if you're mainly using clean amps or you're using them in the effects loop, it's fine. An H9 in front of a dirty Marshall or something. I mean, Tim got some great sounds out of it in front of a dirty amp recently, but he doesn't run his amp super dirty either. Or sometimes he uses pedals, for dirt, and he's got the amp just crunching up. It's fine in front of anything up to a amp that's edgy or crunchy, it's fine. But in front of gain, they can get there's a it's a digital pedal, and there's a fair amount of like shall we say hiss or whatever that can come out of them. Love my H9, really do. The only thing is I wish it was a little, once I've got the editor up on my phone, it's great. But to get to the editor, I got a Bluetooth to it, which it takes about 40 seconds to kind of get to the point where I can turn up the feedback on the delay. Drives me a little crazy, but once I'm in it, the control is great. So it is what it is. I almost wish I had a dedicated, what if it had a little remote that like clipped on the side or something? You could just grab it and pull it off and instantly edit, Or better yet, what if they even just made a pedal? If they could make one of their pedals like a multi-effect that was the size of their old, because remember, a lot of the stuff that's in the H9 came from their previous modulation, the time factor. Remember their delay, the mod factor, I think it was called. They had a reverb that was called something else. I can't remember, but they were, yay big pedals, and they had knobs. If they could put everything in one of those with the knobs and that size, because that would be about the size of my two H9s that are beside one another on my board here, I would probably go that route. If I didn't have to use the app, is what I'm getting at, and I could just store. What if they had a nice? I'm going to talk to them about this. So let's make a pedal together, guys. But if it had a nice display where you could like easily name things and stuff, I don't know, like and had the knobs. Knobs are always better, So that's why Strymon kind of hit it out of the park. They made some great sounding pedals that have the knobs on them. They're easy to tweak. If you want to get a little deeper in, you can. And they've been very successful for like 10 years now with those pedals. So they hit a nice balance. I have two H9s on my board, so I must like them, right? But anyways, Chris Post says he's stoked to be here. Thanks, man. I'm stoked that you're here too. I am. Pete, have you tried a JVM combo? JVM combo. Vintage modern combo. I haven't. Not specifically. Sorry. Give me 10 seconds here or less. Okay. Sorry about that. This is something important coming in that I had to look at. JVM I haven't tried. I tried a JVM head once, though. KT66s. I remember cranking it up in the premium room or whatever, the platinum room at Guitar Center and trying it and thinking it sounded cool. I like that amp. They weren't out for a really long time. I know Paul Gilbert used them for a while. Deshaun, excuse me, is up there in the top chat, and he says, saw a treble booster video. It helped me choose one. Naga Viper. That's cool. That's a great pedal, I think, but I haven't personally tried it. But I know people really like the Naga Viper, and it comes from a great company, so it's supposed to be and it's funny, there's not a hell of a lot of them out there. I wish there was more treble boosters. Treble boosters. Did I just say it? Like the Foo Fighters? What was it? you guys seen that video where it's Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins talking about getting introduced, I think, on SNL by who's the actor? Help me out. Next up, we've got the Foo Fighters. He said, do you want the accent on Foo or Fighters? And they said on Fighters. The Foo Fighters. Who's the come on, help me out here. Help me out here. You guys know who I'm talking about. Who's the actor? Pulp Fiction. Oh God, it's been a million things. Anyways, whatever. What else we got here? Oops, sorry, I just put somebody's comment up there on the screen. Bobby Valdez talking about op amps, and let's look at his comment. He says, or Prince Westerberg talking about Bobby Valdez says, op amp chips have moved on a lot in the last 10, 15 years and run up to 30 volts, hence the utter clarity of even cheap modern audio interfaces. So running them at 9 volt is crazy. Maybe it's part of the sound, though. Watching Rush videos, Alex Lifeson is a riot. What a funny, cool guy, says Steve. Has anybody seen the Rush documentary that came out in 2010? I think it's called Beyond the Lighted Stage, maybe something like that. Right? Isn't it? But those documentary filmmakers that also made the Iron Maiden 666 movie. What a great movie. I watched it again. I've seen it already, but I watched it the other night on Netflix. No, it's so good. Such a great rock documentary. The footage they have in the photos from when they were young, including when Alex is talking to his parents about how he's just going to play rock and roll and he's not going to go to college and all that, is amazing. Like if you haven't seen it, it's so good. But so the Rush doc, watch it. It was Neil Peart's. We would have been 68, I think. It was birthday 2 days ago or yesterday. Maybe it was yesterday. So miss him, man. Yes, I do miss him. Let's see here. This is interesting. Strat Matt says Mike Soldano told me he designed his amp so the power tubes do not affect the sound. I could believe that's true. Sort of a cleaner 5881 6L6 sort of situation. Does that make them more sterile and less warm, round, or spongy than a Marshall? Are Soldano's harsh? Well, I don't hear harsh. I hear they're a great sounding amp in their own way. Like the distortion character of the SLO 100 to me is kind of a big grained, big sounding distortion. The Marshall's a little more, and people might not think of Marshalls as smooth, but I think of them as a little smoother. I find the SLO is kind of grindy, but and the notes are bigger than something like a Jose or a Friedman or the Soldano's. It's not the tightest amp in the world either. And if you run the overdrive much past 5 on the overdrive channel, the preamp gain control, it can get a little like it's not the tightest amp, but the notes are big, and this is why Gary Moore and Warren Haynes and stuff like that got great results out of them. They sound great, it's its own thing. It's got a character to it. It is a lot of preamp gain. It's more, like I say, like one more stage past what a Jose would be in the front end. And it's deriving the gain from the preamp, but that was the start of that era. I mean, when we think about SLO when it came out around 87 or 88, it's when you started seeing them. People wanted more, it was going that way. I mean, there's the same time you saw things like the ADA preamp coming out and Metaltronics amps, and then not long after the Soldano, we had the copies of it. Let's call them copies because they were really the 5150 and the dual recto, gainy, grindy, dual recto for sure, grindy, right? Modern, like there's similarities there. A dual rectifier ended up sounding different because there's different stuff, especially in the power section of the amp, I think. But it was really a pretty close. And when I think of that character, that grindy modern, I think modern, even though it's 20 years old, but I don't know if distortion's been updated again since then. I don't think so. But anyways, the other thing people say about them, SLO, is that they really come, and Friedman showed me this actually, that between 4, 5, 6 on the master, that's where they come alive. And it's true. I was like, oh, Dave taught me that. Oh, you got to turn it up to like here. And then it's like, hear it, what happens? And oh yeah, yeah. But it's really loud by then. So you kind of need an attenuator or something if you want to get into that zone. And then it doesn't have like you're asking, are they harsh? Any of that goes away right there in that, but it's a loud, these are tools for professionals. It's not a bedroom thing, I wouldn't get one if I didn't have, if you got a reactive load or if you got the, the Fryette power station or something, you're all set. You can get it at any volume then. That's one more piece of gear you got to get though. And then you can use it in your bedroom, and get a great sound or home studio or whatever. But you are going to want to, and that makes it really easy to hear that, by the way, because that's how I did it, was in here with the, I might have been using a cab actually. Mic'd in the other room. But anyway, that controlled volume through mics and studio monitors and an isolated cabinet, you turn it up in that zone and, go, oh yeah, there it is. There's where any kind of harsh anything just turns into goodness. Quite a nice clean sound too. And I like the clean in the crunch channel, and I think it's cool, with some effects and a compressor in front or something. I haven't messed with it enough, but, I want to mess around with those sounds too, just for fun. Coyote Stardust says he's trying the Maris Poly Moon delay, and he says it's definitely out there and interesting. Maris pedals, for the most part, the auto bit, and the Mercury 7's fantastic reverb, great sounding and kind of unique. They don't do anything that's traditional, I don't think. It's more like, they're trying to push the envelope. Lauren says he'd round the ends of my slide for me. It's okay. I'm not, they're just slightly different. And I'm such a once in a while slide player. I played slide on a session this week. I did an actual session this week. I didn't bring that up. I recorded some songs with my friend Franklin Vanderbilt, who's Lenny Kravitz's drummer for a long time. Been with Lenny. We toured together, met each other when Chris Cornell opened for 3 weeks in France, actually, for Lenny back in 2009. And I've known Franklin ever since then. So he had a bunch of songs, and we went to Robbie Krieger's studio this week and did a whole bunch of tunes, which was really fun. Michael Dumas engineering, and he was great. And another old buddy, Dan Rothschild, who was the bass player in Melissa Etheridge's band for the first tour that I did with her, he was on it as well. We had a great time kind of reconnecting and social distance style, masks and all that. But, there was very few people in the studio anyway, but it was really fun to get out and play music with real people, cut live takes. It was cool. I really enjoyed it. And Robbie's studio was really cool too. Bill Meinhardt Jr. Is up there in the top chat, in the super chat. Thanks, man. You guys are too kind. He says, enjoy the chat. Have a coffee on me. Thank you. Thank you, good sir. We got 444 people online. You guys rule. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Let's see. Mist La Chico says, Tonemeister Thorn, as a songwriter, do you ever find yourself writing in circles, like a type of rut where your songs are starting to sound similar to each other? How do you break out of it? Once again, I don't worry about it too much, because if I'm, I don't worry about it too much. Maybe what it is for me is a lot of these things that, like in the past, 10 years, have started out as these demos for gear. So I'm always plugging in something different. So I never try and I try and split it up. So you might have noticed, but I try and do different types of videos. I won't do 3 overdrives in a week or something like that. That never happens. So if it's a delay that I'm doing and then a metal distortion, it's going to require a different kind of writing. And so that really helps me to write different kinds of tracks. So now if you got me in the studio with a band and it was like, okay, we need to write, 8 songs for a record, I wonder if I would have that problem. But it's been a minute since I've done anything like that. Usually I'm writing these demo tracks, whatever you want to call them, and that's where a lot of these songs come from. So then I split up the ideas. Now I'm doing something right now where I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've used this melody before, something that I'm writing, but I don't care really. Like, it's like, it doesn't matter because it's for a pedal demo. So maybe I did, maybe I didn't, like 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure I repeat myself sometimes. I don't know. Maybe you guys have heard examples of that, but it doesn't really matter when you can kind of repurpose ideas when it's for, That's the thing that I was trying to say earlier, was I don't put a lot of heat on myself about this stuff, you know, because it's like, I mean, the Beatles wrote some songs that sounded similar to each other, I'm sure. You know, the Rolling Stones, they got a lot of there's a lot of that going on, so it's okay, you know. But if you want a way to break out of that, if you're writing mainly with distortion and, you know, playing eighth notes or whatever, turn on a delay and play with a clean sound. There, now you've just completely changed your, or pick up an acoustic guitar, put on a loop in 6/8. You know, that's another way to mix it up, is drums. It's a great way. If you find yourself falling into a rut of a certain kind of writing, put on a different groove, switch the tempo up radically. You can find guitar players, they fall into the same rhythmic patterns a lot when they pick up a guitar and try and write. So they'll, you know, play 2 chords per bar or whatever, and do a certain kind of strum or whatever. Easy way to break that up is put on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right, drum groove instead of right there. You're going to write a completely different song. So a drum groove of some sort can help break you out of ruts, you know, or odd meter. You know, do something in 5. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, right? It's gonna help break it up. So drums can be a great way to break out of ruts. Different sounds, different effects, different grooves. Yeah. What else we got here? Been appreciating Iron Maiden again since I watched the Flight 666 video. Right? Don't those guys' documentaries? I was talking a little bit earlier. Here, I gotta highlight this different comment. Sorry, I keep forgetting to do that. The dudes that made the Flight 666 documentary, as well as the Rush documentaries, the same guys. They inspire. Like, even if you weren't a fan of the band, you're like, well, I enjoyed that movie. That was great. Like, you come away more of a fan after watching it, right? And not to mention, in the Rush documentary, there's that one fella that makes the point that, like, you know, Rush, even if you weren't into them, if you thought they weren't cool because you were listening to The Cure or you know, whatever you were listening to in the 80s, and then, you know, you come away from it and it's all these years later and they're still out playing arenas. I mean, they're not now, obviously, but, you know, when that movie was made, they were up till 2015, right? Like, they pretty much ruled all the way through, right? To talk about you know, a way to go out on top, right? Like, they stopped playing, and they still could have, the next year they could have come back and played any city in America and sold 10,000 tickets easily. So that was like their whole career. So there was a guy in the movie that made a point that, like, if you don't give it up for them now, like after all these years, even if you didn't like them back then you're just kind of being a dick. And it's true, right? Because it's like, no matter what you think. And I felt the same way about Iron Maiden. I remember from the movie, but also seeing them around 2008. I went to see them live. And I thought, these guys, you know, in Edmonton, that's where I saw them. I was home for a visit in Edmonton. They filled the arena there in 2008. It was 14,000 people. And I'd seen them in the 80s in the same building. It was Northlands Coliseum, right? And I'd seen them there in the 80s on the Power Slave tour, and then on another tour in 89. I remember seeing them in 89, and there wasn't that many people at that show for whatever reason. That record hadn't done as well as Power Slave. And I thought, oh, I wonder if, like, Iron Maiden's, like, it's like not cool anymore, or it's not, or it's fading, whatever, you know, whatever I thought, you know, at that age. And then all these years later, you're back there, and there they are in 2008, right? And it's like, you know, 20 years later or whatever, and they're just on top of the world. And not only that, there was like 14-year-old kids there all the way to like 60-year-old people, you know. It was like this huge, and everybody was buying T-shirts, the new Iron Maiden shirt, whatever. There's, you know, they always have that, the merch thing. And it's just like, God, these guys, whether you got to give it up for them, you know, they've done it, you know, and it's, you know, something else, right? So anyways, yeah. What are you guys talking about? You guys are talking about all AC/DC songs sound different, especially their prog gears. Prog gears? That's funny. Who said that? Floopity doos. I think he's taking the piss out. Did Dan Rothschild do something with the Doors? Oh, yeah. So, Michael, I forgot to mention that. I was talking about recording at Robbie Krieger's this week with Franklin Vanderbilt and Dan Rothschild. His father was The Doors, you know, recorded, produced, I guess, right? The Doors. So, so there is that connection there. And Dan now plays with Robbie as well. So yeah, there's a hardcore connection there. Dan's an amazing musician. If anybody knows Cantor's in LA, if you ever come here and visit, it's not happening now, of course, due to COVID and stuff like that. But there's a jam that happens at Cantor's for many, many, many years on Tuesday nights. And Dan is kind of runs the show, really. Many people come down and sit in, great musicians. They play all kinds of stuff every Tuesday, you know, for many, many, many years. And those guys, they used to play, going back to, I remember they had a band called Men Without Sex in the 90s, and they used to play a club in LA. Does anybody remember the Opium Den, which was my favorite club of all time in LA? It was so much fun. But Wednesday nights at the Opium Den, Dan Rothschild used to play there, the singer Morty, and they still do the Tuesday nights at Cantor's. So that'll start happening again, I guess, whenever all this is over. But it's a great time in LA's on a Tuesday. You can go down there and, you know, get yourself a pastrami sandwich or whatever, and then go in the little bar. Cantor's is a deli in LA, famous deli, right? I think it's, you know, Rodney on the Rock, right? Rodney Bingenheimer. You always see him in there eating dinner. He's got his own table. I'm not kidding. He's got a plaque. But you know, you see him. It's an LA institution, one of those places that you just kind of have to visit, like the Rainbow or something. But there's a bar called the Kibitz Room that's attached to Cantor's, and that's where these guys play. It's just a kind of a dive, you know, bar that's attached to the deli. And yeah, Tuesday nights. So you can see Dan in there and see how hard he rules, because he really does rule. He knows like every single song ever written, it seems like. He sings great, plays incredible bass. He's had the same bass for 40 years. He plays a P bass that's a 75 body with a 72 stamp neck. It's got a beer opener on it right down by the volume controls and the tone controls. And it's incredible. And he bought that bass 40 years ago, and he's played the same bass all these years. It's cool. So been a while since I've been to Cantor's. Lauren said, didn't know about the bar. Yeah, dude, it's right next door. The Kibitz Room. Come on now. You can get to it from Cantor's. You can just go walk all the way through and go through the back, or you can go through the other door. And so if you're looking at the front of it, it's to the right. So have you ever used Amplitude? A little bit. A little bit. Yeah, I have. Let's see here. I have used Amplitude. Jimi Hendrix. That was good. I liked it. Great Fender amp sims in there. Really terrific. But not much since then. So, and I used to use it for bass a little bit. Broken Strings says, do you think you could get John Suhr to build a Vox-inspired amp? You know, he did build a prototype of an AC30 style amp, and I want to try it, actually, because he's still got it out there, and I never really played through it that much, but I bet it's great. It's just a prototype he built for fun, for himself, to try and do it, you know. I think it's a great idea, personally, and maybe I'll mention that to him. Like, whatever happened to that? Because we were talking about other amp ideas the other day. So, yeah. John says that he loves The Cure and Rush and Maiden. Isn't that the great thing about getting a little older? Once you get out of high school, you're like, hey, I can like all these things, and it's not gonna get me in trouble with my friends. It's not about being cool or fitting into. You can like everything, you know. It's cool. I always like Iron Maiden, man. It's just a cool band, totally unique. So, let's see. What else have we got here? Bruce Dickinson is the man, a singer, fencer, and pilot. I think he's he write a book too, at least one, right? He's a hell of a guy, for sure. A really interesting cat. I'd love to meet him sometime. Yeah. Let's see. How many people have you met that claim to be the person in the Eddie costume? I've met 3, says My Knees Hurt. You know, I toured with a girl that was actually on that Lenny Kravitz tour. She was she was a production person for Lenny in that tour where I met Franklin Vanderbilt. And she worked for Iron Maiden on the tour where they did the 666 movie, I think, actually. She was on that tour. And I don't know if she was in the Eddie costume, but she was one of they kind of enlist people, evidently, like, oh, you're not too busy during the show, you're working in the office, we need you. And they'll get you to like go in like a monster or something on stage. And now you're that person. Like during this song, you got to go up and move around. And, so you climb up some rickety ladder and you go up, and you need to, you know, run something that wasn't, you're like, I'm just, you know, I don't have any experience in this. I work for the management company or whatever. And all of a sudden you're on stage with the band. That's what I've heard. So I wouldn't be surprised if they claim to be the person in the Eddie costume. It's probably many different people. It's like, you've got time during this song, you're ready tonight, you know. Anyways. Yeah. Eternalism says Rush was the same three guys except the first album. That's true. Maiden was a revolving doors lineup. I don't know if I call it revolving doors, you know, really. In the beginning, I've watched some recent documentaries, but I didn't realize before they kind of, you know, settled on the, you know, with Paul Di'Anno singing and stuff like that, before they went through a lot of people, like for the first few years. But then they had Clive, right, on drums, and Paul Di'Anno up through Killers, and then Bruce, right, Number of the Beast, and, you know, he joined. And then for the next album, Power Slave, that's when Nico joined, right? And then it was the same lineup for quite a while, until now I get fuzzy with the Blaze joining and singing, and then Yannick when he joined, you know. But we're talking about a very long period where, you know, yeah, there was a couple changes during there, and then Bruce came back, obviously, and then, but it's kind of it's Power Slave lineup, which was intact in '86, except for Yannick also playing with them, right? I mean, all the way through till now. So that's '86 till now is a long time. Yeah. Steve says Mike Portnoy and Rush. I think he would be a great fit. I agree. Mike or Danny, probably Danny Carey would be great, I think. You know, for any kind of one-off show or something, but I really don't think they would ever do Rush again. I mean, if you know, you see you see Getty talking about in the documentary, the Rush documentary, about, he's like, I can't fathom doing this band without those two other guys. Like, that's not Rush, you know, wouldn't be, this is just, that's our band. So it would be something else, I think, you know, or if it was a one-off, a tribute, something or other, that would be really cool. What if they had different drummers and did like some sort of tribute? That'd be cool, you know. Obviously, Mike would have to be there, and like I say, Danny and some other, you know, be some other terrific people that would, you know, I'm sure would be interested in something like that. But that'd be cool. But you know, Prince Westerberg says he can't stand Geddy Lee's vocals, you know. But who else would do it? And it wouldn't sound like Rush without him, you know. It's a thing. That's what I'm saying. You just got to give it up for him. Like, you know, at this point, there it is, you know, and it's Rush, and you know it when you hear it, and it's a thing. And it's like, whether or not you like, whether or not it's like nails on a chalkboard to you, you know, later on, I think he, you know, like when they did Snakes and Arrows and, you know, Vapor Trails and all that, he, you know, started writing melodies that were more, you know, maybe in the range that was more, he kind of, as with a lot of singers in the 70s, a lot of these guys painted themselves into a corner, you know, with the writing and stuff. And I'm sure years later, they're probably, why the hell did I do that? I mean, I remember hearing about, you know, Don Henley, he was getting pushed in the studio, I think, to change the key to sing high because he could. And it sounded great when he did Boys of Summer was the song I was thinking about, you know. But I'm sure all those years later, maybe thought to myself, why did I sing so damn high? You know, when you're young, it's one thing, right? And then you get older and it's like, you know, it can be difficult, obviously, right? So it's like, you know, that was just sort of the sound of the time, was sing really high, you know, it was like a thing. And then later on, it was not so much. So, you know, rock and roll is a young man's game, I guess. I don't know. You know, can I comment on Holdsworth's tone? I'm not like the biggest Holdsworth aficionado. I've listened to him and gone, God, he's amazing and stuff like that. But okay, so I know this about him, that he was always trying to, like, he really, guitar was almost like, I think, like a secondary thing to him. He was really like an improviser, you know, that used the guitar as his vehicle. And he was trying to, I think, in many ways, eliminate the idiosyncratic sort of nature of playing with playing guitar and the attack and stuff. I think he wanted to emulate saxophone, from what I understand, like that he was really like, he kind of like, you know, envied horn players because, you know, things like attack of a pick and then legato, you know, where you could hear the difference between the two things. He didn't like that so much. I think he just wanted the purity of the notes and the ideas to come through. So I think tonally, he might have been one of the first guys that used a double screw humbucker, I think. Didn't he have one of the first, like, didn't he have a Seymour Duncan pickup and it was double screws, which is going to smooth out the sound, or like a Sur DSV or DSH, those double screw, they've got a smoother sound than the you know. So I think that's the thing about Holdsworth, is he was always going for a smooth horn, like, from what I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I understand. What else we got here? What else we got? 2112 is the only tape I listened to. I like you said tape. Chris Post. Only tape I listened to for a whole summer. Isn't it a great moment in the Rush movie, if you guys have seen it, where they're talking about 2112 and how they were getting pushed by the record company to, like, they basically thought they were going to fail. This is it. This is the last hurrah. You know, with the label wants us to write hits, because I think it was it Caress of Steel, or the second record, right, was sort of flop, and it didn't have any hits, and, you know, it was like his tours were getting smaller, crowds were getting smaller, and it was like, oh God, this isn't happening anymore. So I guess this is it. Well, we better go out on our own terms, and they turn in 2112, you know, as opposed to writing any hits. They delivered that and blow up huge on their own terms, right? And then it's like, now they're like, okay, now we get to do whatever we want, because they just kind of they made their own way, you know, no radio play, no whatever. All of a sudden it just sells, and critics hate it, and radio won't play it, and people love it. You know, I love that story. It's great. Holdsworth used 5+ Yamaha Magic Stomps at one time, says Bobby. Did he really? That's crazy. I had a Yamaha Magic Stomp. It had a great acoustic guitar emulation thing in it that I used. I used it on my acoustic sound only, but really made a acoustic pickup sound better, like a mic. And I used it for one tour. I remember for, God, I wonder where that thing ended up. Yamaha Magic Stomp. Like, I haven't thought about it for 15 years. You just made me think about it. I wonder what it's in, like storage somewhere or something. Ben says critics suck. They always hate prog music. Well, these are the people that would bag on Iron Maiden or Rush, right? And then, like, you know, 20 years later, when Iron Maiden's still selling 20,000 tickets or 15,000 tickets, where's that critic? You know, he's gone off. He sells real estate now or something. You know, it's just like, who cares? You know, what critics think. You know. So I think Vapor Trails was Geddy's best vocals, says Paul. I think he was, you know, at that point probably really in the zone of trying to, you know, like, I'm going to sing what's comfortable to me and work on it and try and not, you know, it was great. You know, it's like, I don't know. What else we got here? Wyatt says, get back into some gear here. Wyatt says, how close could you dial in a PT100 to sound like your Jose style amp on its best setting? I think that a PT100 with the boost on in the front, because the boost is kind of leaned out in the low end. It's not dissimilar. It's a MOSFET boost, but it's in the front of the amp, and it's definitely tuned to cut some lows out. Might be able to get pretty close with a PT100 with the boost on. I think, actually, more so than a PT15, which doesn't have that style boost in the front end. But yeah, the PT100 with the MOSFET boost on in the front end, and maybe, you know, lows dialed out. I'd have to play with the feedback and stuff, but make sure the bright's on, because they're bright amps, man. I mean, that's the thing too. A Jose is bright. You know, they got a lot of sizzle. So, yeah. Lauren says his Zoom A3 does the mic'd acoustic thing very well. Fishman Aura is better but more expensive. I like the Aura. My favorite acoustic thing that I've heard so far is probably just using an IR in the Helix as a host, and then using compression and a little bit of EQ in the Helix to fine tune it, and you can blend in the IR as well. That worked really, really well for like those IRs I found online of a Taylor that somebody had made. It was like a Taylor 314 or something, and there was a Sheps mic that I really liked, and I used it live in a Helix with my Tacomating, and it sounded great. So that's another way to go. Yeah. What else have we got? Let's see. Covers album Feedback by Rush sounds exactly like Caress of Steel tone. Must have for early Rush sound. That's cool. I should go back and listen to that. I remember they did, you know, what was the Who song they did? Seeker maybe or something on there, but I need to go back and listen to it because it's been a minute. I don't know that I ever heard the whole thing all the way through. So that's good. Thanks for that. Eternalism, I'll check it out. Thoughts on Jackson era Ampeg amps? I remember those. They had the turnkey. I don't really remember what they sound like, to be honest. They're probably like a hot rodded JCM 800 kind of thing, but I don't really remember that. I remember you had to have a key to turn it on. What do I think of Wilco? I was talking about them last week, and that's Patrick up there in the super chat. Thanks, buddy, for doing that. I don't. That's another like Holdsworth and Wilco. Sorry, I just don't have a lot of experience there. So, but you folks were recommending that I go watch that. You know, I remember was the Whiskey Foxtrot. You know, that album and the movie. There's a couple documentaries about them that I should go check out. So that's been on my mind. I'm go do some rock docs. Pete, is there a 10-inch speaker that's up in the top chat? Twangsta says, is there a 10-inch speaker that does 75 tones, T75 tones? Probably one of the most, I don't know, to be honest. I've never compared too much. I'm familiar with the Greenback 10 and I'm familiar with the Gold. So those are the two. Both sound great, but I don't know about 75 tones. They might have a more sort of generic, because the 75 is kind of their generic speaker. So if there's another, maybe some of you guys out there can recommend. I think don't they make a creamback in a 10 as well? But the only two that I own are the Gold. I have a Gold and I have a 10 and a 110 cap. That sounds a 10 greenback in a cab. And that sounds great for rock and roll greenback tones. But I'm sorry, I don't have a. If I would probably get whatever their basic, like I seem to remember they make a 10 with like the white and black basic logo on the back. That would be the one I would probably get if I was like, well, I want the most generic one, which is to me what their 75 is. It's not my favorite speaker, 75. So that's why I'm not a great, you know, they always sound a little cardboardy to me, to be honest. That's just me, you know, it's all taste. Stratmat says the guitarist in Huey Lewis and the News is drastically underrated. Huey Lewis and the News rules. Those guys, they wrote some great tunes, man. I agree. Yeah, I Want a New Drug. That's got a cool solo in it, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. Do you know a simulation of a two-stage phaser? Well, a two-stage phaser is a phase 45. So, you know, I think there's simulation of a two. What do you mean by simulation, though? Like another pedal or a plug-in, or because I can't remember on a Helix. Let me look here. I can actually do this while I'm looking at the screen because I can call up HX Edit and my Helix is connected. Waiting for it to load. I'm just looking at the phasers here. Modulation. Deluxe phaser. Does it have stages? Stages. Yeah, it does. Yep. You can do a two-stage phaser in the deluxe phaser of a Helix. So if you had a Helix HX Stomp, you could do it. So not the script mod phase, but the deluxe phaser, which is the other one that kind of lets you tweak a lot more. There's wave shape, and you can tweak the mix, and you can tweak the offset, which I guess is how maybe how lumpy it is or whatever sounding. So there's more parameters in there, but you can do a 2-stage in there. Is that helpful? I hope so. Great gear review of the Ombre. You said that your ears were ringing. Any tinnitus? I have a little tinnitus, but it's not debilitating. Just from over the years. It used to be worse, actually. It got better. When I played with Chris Cornell, I used in-ears, and I had this side up real loud a lot because I had my guitar panned to one side, to my left, and so a couple of years of doing that, and I learned my lesson. It was like this ear was a little damaged, maybe permanently, but I don't know. But it got better as I was more careful about it, and then as I got away, occasionally from long tours and playing live for a while stuff, this one just ceased to ring as much as it used to, I think. But it's easy to set them off now. So if I like play for 5 minutes real loud, they're just and then it goes away. So it just seems like I don't have as much, I can't go as long as I used to be able to do without setting them off. A Very Dead Horse is up in the super duper chat, top chat. He says, getting the Victory V4 Duchess amp for demo, ? I don't know. I don't think so. It seems like it would be a killer solution for a pedal amp. Also, most vocally impressive Chris Cornell tune. That's a good question. So the Victory amp, first of all, I'm not doing a lot of amp demos, although I'm starting to do a few because I'm working for doing Guitar World reviews now. So I've got one that's here that I'm doing for them. I shouldn't talk about it yet but there's an amp that's here that I'll be reviewing for them. So if they were to send me a Victory, I guess I would do it. But other than that, I haven't been doing a lot. Other than the Amps in the Zone videos, I consider a different thing. It's a demo, I guess, but it's more like, where I'll take, in the future, I plan on maybe doing the Soldano and showing that thing because it certainly applies to the Amps in the Zone thing, right? Where you got to turn it up between 4 and 5 or whatever, 5 and 6. And there's the sweet spot. Things like that, I can show that. Or in a, I'm going to do AC30 is probably the next one I'll do. So, so these are all things that will be coming. Let's see here. What else we got? Would love an Amps in the Zone on Soldano. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it seems like that'll be a popular one. Probably AC30 and Soldano would be quite popular, I think. So I will do. Most popular, but the most impressive song for him vocally. I'll tell you, in recent times, and there's a little bit of this on the video that we did. If you watch the show that we did at the Roxy in 2016, he does a song called "Stay With Me, Baby." That's an old, R&B tune that he covered because he'd done all these covers. He did whole albums worth of covers. A couple of them have come out, but not like the whole thing. And that is one of the songs. And I think it got released because I think maybe it was in a movie or something. But his vocal is insane on that song. And we did it live. So I think maybe the only time the song was ever played live was the time that we did it at the Roxy. And it was so much fun to play that. And I remember telling him, like, dude, what are you just trying to like sing the greatest like R&B vocal of all time or something? Like when you did it, because when he did it in the studio, and he was like, oh, thanks, but I was like, God, man, like he just sang the crap out of that song. So that's the most recent one that I can think of, is Stay With Me. Maybe you can find a recording of it. Check it out. It's like, if you haven't heard it, it's Stay With Me, Baby, or Stay With Me. Chris Cornell, look and see if I don't know if it's on iTunes or something. It might be. I'll look right now. Let's take a look and see. It's really unbelievable. Now, as far as back in the day goes, I would say On the Wheel, right? Maybe was pretty oh yeah, it is. It's on iTunes. Stay With Me, Baby. Look for Stay With Me, Baby, Chris Cornell. Listen to his vocal on that. Maybe not the one you thought I would have picked, right? But take a listen to it. Unbelievable. Sail to Heaven is unbelievable. Because of the range, right? The dynamics. I was saying, Beyond the Wheel, probably a lot of Soundgarden fans would pick something like that because it was so, just like that crazy thing that he could do. But yeah, Jesus Christ Pose, says Brisley Adams. Pretty amazing. But those are he had a lot of moments in the songs that were, I mean, okay, so for me, one of the most amazing things about him wasn't necessarily the vocal prowess or from the sports aspect of like, oh, he could do this with his voice. Listen to a song like Zero Chance off of Down on the Upside. That song blows me away because of the mood of the song. It's so dark and it's so melancholy. It's one of the most melancholy vocals. I love it. I get the chills actually just bringing it up right now. Because I got to play that song with him a few times. I wish we'd played it more. I love the song so much. But Zero Chance, listen to that one. It's a bit of it's a mind fuck a little bit, like about the way that it goes from sometimes there's 2/4 bars and the way it holds over and stuff, and the way they would write, that Soundgarden sort of falling down the stairs, like it's not typical like just 4/4. It's like, there's odd breaks and bars and things like that, but the way he ties it up with the melody is my point. In a similar way, the way that he could tie up a song like 4th of July with his melody, with this sludgy down-tuned thing, and then he comes in with this melody that is absolutely gorgeous, right? And it just ties the whole thing together so beautiful, right? And it's like, how did you write that melody on top of that thing that's like, sounds like this monster coming out of sludge, and he sings this melody that makes it all a complete circle, and it's unbelievable, to me, that he had that ability to do that. So those are the things actually vocally that, to me, it's not about the, because in Zero Chance and just listen to Zero Chance. That's one of my favorite Soundgarden songs of all time, which is not, like I say, these aren't the songs that you might think I would pick. It's so beautiful though, and melancholy and just cool. I don't know. It's great. I asked him I was like, dude, what were you thinking about when you wrote that? Like, what was that? And he goes, oh, I don't know. It's probably some depressed, I don't know. And that was the answer he gave me. I don't think I ever asked him that question again about a song after I asked him that. He didn't seem irked, but he seemed like, I don't know. It seemed like a question he didn't want to answer. I'll put it to you that way. Up in the top chat, Bent Tom, congratulations on 135 weekly streams. You rock, Pete. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, man. It is 135 this week. It's crazy, right? It's a lot of it's more than 2 years of these things, I guess. Was it 52 weeks in a year? So I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for doing the top chat. And I will be here. I'm still enjoying doing this. If you guys are here, I'll be here. Mike says he likes 70s, 80s. That's an interesting Celestian speaker. Kind of like my Soundgarden song choices or Chris Cornell song choices. Not the usual one that people bring up. The 70s, 80s mixed with V30s in a 212. And a closeback with V30s. Interesting. Pete, you're right about Holdsworth's approach. He knew where every mode or scale was on the fingerboard, says Paul Ewing. He could look down and see every note available. He hated guitar chords and used piano inversions. Yeah, I love that. Almost he used the guitar in a very different way, didn't he? Like this is just a vehicle. McAlpine's a little like that. And I didn't realize it until I played with him in Polnareff's band. But Tony, you hear him on piano and it's like, oh my God, he's virtuoso, right? Like he's a savant almost or something. It's like, how do you even do that? I mean, I think he was playing like that when he was like 5 years old on piano. So it's just incredible, on guitar, you see how he approaches it. Oh my God, he's playing piano. That's what he's doing. Like, I didn't really realize it before. And, Yvette's like that too, Yvette Young. They don't really approach guitar in a typical way at all. They just, Yvette retunes it and stuff and then moves around, finds the notes she wants to hear in her head. But when you see her play piano and violin, you're like, oh, okay. She's just making music using this thing as the vehicle. She doesn't use a pick. She retunes it. Completely different approach to guitar, which is why it's so fresh. Not thinking about boxes or any of it. She has no, she'll be the first one to tell you, I think, that she has no idea like about any of that stuff. Like, couldn't play a blues scale, if you asked her to. Nothing to do with that, her style of guitar, which is so interesting. So I find that fascinating, It just takes it to a whole nother place. Draco Guitar says, what are my thoughts on the Dunlop Echoplex compared to the DLA stage in the Tech 21? The Echoplex is much more tape. You know, you can modulate it and make it really, you know, you can screw it up and make it much more, you know, tape delay and a lot of things. They'll put a little high end roll off and make it like a dark, you know, they call that tape. Not to say that's bad or that can sound bad or that the delay in the Tech 21 isn't, you know, cool or whatever. It's not that. It's like, it's a very different thing. The actual tape delay can be kind of bright. Like if you really use an Echoplex or use a, you know, it's probably always rolled off a little bit, but in, you know, you hear the echo more than you do many times in, let's say an analog delay, like a, you know, a Boss, what's it called? The DM or whatever the analog purple Boss is, you know, they're super dark. Like, you know, that's the analog delay thing. That does not sound like a tape delay unless the tape is like really worn and old, but even then it's a different sound. So something like an Echoplex is really good. Like it actually is a great pedal. George Tripp's designs great stuff. So it really captures the character of a real Echoplex with the inconsistent wow and flutter. Also the tone of the way the delay filters out. It's really accurate to me. You know, it's almost like a distortion thing going on. That's really interesting. Okay. Let's see here. Leroy says he finds Eric Gales extremely interesting because he's a lefty. He used to play upside down and then switched to regular lefty. Didn't seem to slow him down at all. You know, he's amazing too. He's in one. That's, yeah, the DM2. That's the delay I was thinking of. Eric's really unique and super cool. You know, you think of folks like Stanley Jordan or you know, Michael Hedges. You know, it's like bold on guitar, doing things totally different. So Guitar 77 says, how about a Bell Epic? I think you mean Bell Epcock. I don't know how you say it, but it's the Caitlin bread, right? Didn't they make it? So the pedal you're talking about? I think that's, I only tried that pedal with Dan from that pedal show when we did a show together on delay, and it sounded great to me. It boosted a little bit though. That's the only thing. You turn it on and definitely get louder, which I think you can adjust on the inside of the pedal, but it did sound cool. Deshaun is up in the top chat. He says, want a Marshall Plexius sound, which is good. The SV20, the Vintage Modern, or JCM 800. One Marshall Plexius sound, which is good. The SV20, the Vintage Modern, or the JCM 800. Read it's more of an aggressive type of plexi. It's really just gainier. I don't know if it's more aggressive, but I have a Rectoverb 25. Don't need a high gain amp. Can PT15 do Marshall? Well, I think PT15 is a killer Marshall. I mean, it is kind of a PT15 is really like sort of like more like modded JCM 800 though, tweaked. You know, where in particular, like just technically the way the gain stages are and stuff. But with the JCM 800, you can get great plexi sounds too. You want a Marshall plexi-ish sound, which is good. The SV20, the Vintage Modern, and JCM 800. I mean, they're all good. The SV20 I haven't personally tried, but I've watched all the videos, and I know Doug Aldrich seems to like his and stuff. I think without trying, it's tough, you know. The thing you got to ask yourself is a couple things, like, do I want an effects loop? Do I need a master volume? Or maybe you have an attenuator or something, you know? All these things are the things you have to consider. How much versatility do you need? Are you going to play it at home? Because even an SV20 at home is going to be loud, and you're not going to be able to get it to give up the goods until it's, you know, it's not a practice amp. Whereas something like a, you know, this is where something like a PT15 or, you know, Friedman's amps or something come into play. Like they're more friendly ways to go for that tone. So maybe give me a little bit more info on what your, you say you don't need a high gain, but I assume you want it to distort. You know, if you want it to distort, if it's a true plexi thing, it's still going to be really loud. Can you get Vox chimey sounds from the PT15 IR? I mean, Vox chimey, I don't claim that either of my amps really do the Vox thing because it's such a unique sound. It's completely different. There's no negative feedback. It's EL84s. the Class A, you know, whatever, no negative feedback thing. Different design completely, and it's got this unique sound that also, to me, a big part of it is the cabinet. So that's a different sound to me that is, you know, my amp will do the Fendery Marshally. If people ask me, can you do Fendery? I say yes. You know, Marshally, yes. Vox, I'm not going to say that. It would be disingenuous for me to suggest that it, you know, now on the, if you turn down the bass, turn up the treble, hit the bright on channel 1, grind it up a little bit. Does it do chimey stuff? Yes, but it's more like a 6v6 kind of character. It's a little more American for sure in its character. Run it into 212 with blues, kind of getting closer, you know, but it's still not the same sound as an AC30. That's a different sound to me. Great sound, but different sound, you know. It's kind of no substitute for, you know, you just got to go for it. So Deshaun says, yes, want distortion, will play at home and live. Moving back to Japan. Oh, good for you. I wish I was you. Can I come? Can I come visit? Way to control volume is good. The PT15, man, is your answer, because you're moving to Japan, and that's who I made that amp for. Almost was like, I was thinking about, God, guys in Japan are going to love this. It's, they can at home take the line out and plug it into studio monitors or even headphones, you know, a small powered speaker, and you're going to be able to just, you'll love it. You'll love the Marshall tones you get using that thing with the built-in load, and that's the amp you need. Yeah, PT15 all the way for sure. See, I didn't recommend it right away. I'm not just a shill. Once you told me, you know. Anyways, when is the Frampton show coming up? That's right. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming up, because I got to go soon. It's 1:30. Coming up, we've got Josh Smith. I believe it's going to be next week, but I've got some stuff going on this week where I'm not exactly sure what is happening with my week. So that may affect what I'm doing next Sunday. Not sure yet. So I will let you know on my social media and stuff. I most likely will be here, but there's some things afoot that involve work and stuff that, so I was going to do next Sunday with Josh. So it might be something that I got to put back 1 week. Just not sure yet. So we'll see. That's coming up. Frampton is going to be in October. So I'll let you know on my social media, but it's going to be probably 2nd or 3rd week of October. And that'll be a lot of fun. Can't wait. For those that didn't know, he's got a book coming out, and he's going to come on my humble live stream here. It's going to be some fun. Yeah. Well, what else we got here? Quentin says, "How did you get to be so cool?" I don't know. I'm a nerd. I'm a total nerd. But thank you. Appreciate you saying. I don't know. If you think I'm cool, then I'll humbly accept that, and you're a gentleman and a scholar. Thank you. Jim Kelly, best for clean sound, says Michael. I love a Jim Kelly clean. Which amp would you carry to a lonesome island? I mean, that's a great idea. Or, you know, to be honest, I mean, if at a reasonable volume, a nice clean, it's, you know, the Bella would be great if it's a Sir. A Princeton reverb is a beautiful thing. A deluxe reverb is a beautiful thing. A little bit louder, you know. I love a nice Princeton reverb. I can sit there and play through that all day for clean and some compression, a little echo, turn up the reverb a bit. Beautiful. You know. What's your favorite speaker from Marshally sounds with lots of defined crunchiness, but without the lead tone being too harsh or bright? Greenback. Strat Matt says, I've got that great old set of blackbacks that are out there in the cab in the, you know, in the other room, and I'm so happy with that. And that's all the Marshall goodness I need. But yeah, Greenback has defined crunchiness. To me, it's that warm, woody breakup, and they're not harsh, you know. I don't think. I mean, they can be kind of fitzy, but you know, the old ones, not so much, especially if they're broken in. They're just warm and lovely, I think. Holdsworth, as good as he was, says, we need critical thinking. And this is some good critical thinking. He says, Holdsworth, as good as he was not a egotistical narcissist. His quest was to be original. Yeah, he seemed like a great guy to me. Like, struck me as a, you know, I saw him live. The only time I ever saw him, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks before he passed away, was at the Speakeasy in Venice. Can't remember the name of the place right now, but downstairs, anybody in LA might have been there. I don't know, but it was so packed that I actually didn't stay for the whole thing. I couldn't really see him. It was really hot and packed, and to be honest, I wasn't really enjoying myself. It was I couldn't see him, and I couldn't get close enough, and I was like, I'm just without the, sound wasn't amazing and stuff, and it was like he was playing great and everything, I'm sure, but it was like, and so I took off, and then he passed away, and I felt bad about that. But I guess maybe I would have enjoyed it more had I had it was a kind of a bad place to see a show like that, had it been the Baked Potato or something where you could sit and watch. I was standing, couldn't see, vying for can't really hear, not just, I don't know, I just couldn't really, it felt like seeing something at NAMM, when you see, and it was like, I'm not really, this isn't a way I can enjoy this kind of music, so that's what happened there. So unfortunately, but at least I saw him for a minute, I guess, I don't know, just being honest, that's the way I felt about it. What else we got here? I should split, but thoughts on Fender Pro Sonic? I like that little amp. I thought it was pretty good. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've tried one, but I remember when they came out and that they had a pretty decent drive sound for Fender. A good shop in LA to do a custom mod on it. I would try Friedman. I'd love to see what he could do with the Fender Pro Sonic. Actually, it'd be interesting. But yeah, just racksystems@yahoo.com. Send him an email and see what he comes up with. I think he'd probably do something interesting with it. I wonder how different they are than a Tone Master. Jim Verney is up in the top chat, and he says, "Hey Pete, do you have any favorite or go-to compression pedals? Thanks for the show." Well, I've been using this one for the last couple of days. This is really great. This is a double Cali 76, so you can set up one with fast attack and slow release, and the other one with slow release and fast attack if you want to, but feed one into another, and you get that complex kind of double compression. Some of the other ones that I really like are the Sir Koji's great, has kind of expensive, sort of almost like LA2A kind of sound or something. The original Cali 76, the big one, which I have right here, I still use sometimes because it's just, look at the size of it, it's huge. See? This thing sounds great. What a great sounding pedal. On my board, Unit 67 for, kind of dirty boost and compression, and then a Ego Comp. Wampler Mini Ego Comp is what I use now. It's great. Equally as much, I pretty much like the, for a little one, is the Exotic SP. So it's really nice for a small one as well. They both sound really good. Other compressors, I don't know. Those are the ones that come to mind right now. I remember I was thinking about Barefoot and about BJFE pedals. The pale green. That was a really cool compressor that doesn't really do the traditional. It's a compressor, but it's got almost like a dirty boost sort of sound or something to it, I guess. So that's another one to consider. I mean, any I'm missing? Nice compressors. Those are all the ones that I can think of now. What about the Philosopher's Tone? That's a neat box. It's got the overdrive in it, right? And I remember being able to get some really cool sounds out of it. Like, because it had that drive circuit built in. You get that smooth, kind of interesting drive. It's pretty cool. I did a demo of it, but that was 10 years ago, I think. Pete, did you ever meet fellow Canadian Alex Lifeson? I did. I met him in LA once at a Sloan show, and I was a little starstruck. I remember just standing with, I think, Patrick from Sloan and a couple other people, and then Alex was there, and I got introduced to him. Said, "Hello, great to meet you," and then that was it, But he seemed nice. He was just hanging out. He seems like a hilarious guy and super cool. I'd love to chat with him more at some point. I think that would be fascinating. Like, I'd really like that, actually. Have an actual conversation with him. It would be pretty fun. MMEIERS Yard Mears Yard 1 up there in the top chat says, "Maybe if I sell my house, I'll own a dumbbell someday." A dumbbell? A dumbbell. But until then, can you steer me in the best direction for dumbbell tone? Not an amp I'm an expert in. So, there's other guys out there, but I know there's like the Bluto tones and the Two Rocks and, Fuchs and all these different ones. Mine that I have is the Hedgehog, and I think it's great. Really a terrific sounding you know, the drive circuit that's in it and stuff. It has that smooth American drive. Sounds, if I was going to go do a, you know, try and do some Robin Ford-esque something or other, not that I can attempt that, but if I was, would have to practice for a while. That would be the amp I would take, is the Hedgehog. It's got a, you know, it's an American style, really tweakable, and then it's got the drive circuit in it, much like Dumble, right? So that's kind of what John was going for with that amp. So I do have one of those, and I think it's great. Anything else? Get a Zen Drive pedal. Yeah, a Zen Drive. That's great, from Ben Coombs. Zen Drive into, I always say, it was like into my Blackface Bassman. I used a Zen Drive in my 335 for the solo on 10th Street off my first record, Guitar Nerd. If you listen to that and you like that sound, that's the Zen Drive in front of a, you know, typical, inexpensive, relatively mid-60s Blackface amp. So the Zen Drive does a great job. And I know that was Robin's choice, right? When he would go do gigs and fly gigs with, you know, rental super reverbs or whatever, he'd use the Zen Drive, I think. Yeah. Bogner Lyndhurst is a killer compressor with the Neve transformer, but not cheap, says Paul Ewing. I did a demo of that. That is actually my song for my second record, In Good Company. Started out as the Bogner Lyndhurst demo. So you're right. That is a nice one. The Harlow too, isn't that it's like a dirty compressor boost thing. Sounds great. And it kind of reminds me of how I use the Unit 67. Similar, like the Harlow. Similar boost, little compressor for driven sounds, you know, not hard rock metal, but like more like, you know, if I was going for the Who or something. You know, Pete used to use a Dynacomp a lot, right? I think still does, has a Dynacomp on his board. I don't know how often it's on, but that sound, you know, you can get out of something like a Harlow or a Unit 67 in front of an amp that's maybe just on the edge of breakup, you know. We'll push it into that cool Pete Townsend clangy chord thing. Peter Evans, thanks, man, up there in the super duper chat. You guys too kind. He says, a fine show always makes for a solid Sunday. Enjoy the week. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, Peter. Thanks, you guys, for contributing to the cause. Of course, I've got my I'll mention I got my Sweetwater link in the video description below. Always helps if you need strings or picks or drumsticks, a kazoo, ukulele strings, a Timmy, I don't know, a slide that's got a square edge on it. Anyway, Sweetwater link there. I appreciate it. I partnered with them. It's an affiliate link, in full disclosure, and it helps out the channel. I appreciate it. All right, you guys are going to split. Everybody's saying thanks. I guess it's time to go. Do I have any PRS guitars? Not anymore. I've had a couple. I had a 24 fret, you know, the bolt-on one, custom 24, I think it was called. Alder body, maple top, maple neck, rosewood board, 2 humbuckers, and I had a McCarty. And the McCarty was the one I really liked. That was a great guitar, actually. Served as my Les Paul for, you know, when I only had a few guitars, maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s. I just had a few guitars, and that was my my Les Paulish guitar then that I had. I think I actually owned a Les Paul. I think I owned my red Les Paul at the same time. That guitar in here, maybe. I don't know where it is, but yeah, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Your 335 on the Sir video recently was fantastic, says Ian. Thanks, man. Yeah, if you guys haven't seen, I put out the Ombre video on Friday. Really fun. Plugged right into the amp. Used a headstock tuner. No pedals. Nothing. A very pure, straight up tone. I used this microphone mainly. M160. Classic, great microphone. The Hendrix mic, you know, to record it. If anybody wants a great mic for, by the way, for home studio, and you're like, I want the amp to sound like it sounds in the room, not harsh like a 57 or add any cut. This is great. Get one of these. Just get one. You'll thank me later. And blended with a 57, actually, which is what I, at Robbie Krieger's studio this week when I was doing the sessions, Michael Dumas was getting great sounds. I said, what are you using in there? He had an old greenback loaded cab that I just took my PT15, and he said, I'm using a M160 and a 57, and I kind of split them a little bit. And then I've got a 414 back in the room. I'll sometimes blend in just a little bit. And that was his formula. And it was a great sound that he was getting on the guitars. So there you go. Yeah. a couple more, just because you guys keep asking questions, which I love. Why not? Let's talk guitar. Blood Reina says he's looking for a highlighted here. Looking for a combo valve amp. I can plug my guitar and have a great plexi tone. And I don't need more to a house in the middle of nowhere. Isolate my room to be arrested. Move to a house in the middle of nowhere. Isolate my room to be arrested. I see. Yeah, great plexi tone. To be honest, I mean, listen to the Ombre video and tell me if it's plexi enough to you. That's pretty great for that. I mean, it's a little lower gain than maybe, but if it's ZZ Top and free, I mentioned it's a great, if you're playing Zeppelin or free, listen to the sound with the telly and with the, and then imagine hitting it with the drive. Pretty great for a combo, man. I mean, now beyond that, you know, Marshall makes their little SV20, I think, in a combo. So that might be something else you can consider, a little 20 watt, you know, that's, you know, still going to wake the neighbors up probably, but not get you evicted, I don't think, depending on where you live. Pete, have you done the Kemper thing? Paul Bartlett says, I've got a Kemper, yeah. And I used it on my last record. It's sitting right there. I'm looking at it. I could throw a pick at it right now if I want. No, I'm not going to do that. I need that pick for later. Yeah, I've got one. It's a good tool, you know. Preston Smith says, replicating the actual sound of a room is hard to do. I wish my recording sounded exactly like what I'm hearing. Try that mic, man. I mean, the beautiful thing about an M160 is a full sounding mic. You can pull it back 3 inches, like, you know, pull it back that far from the cab and then move it around on the, you know, to find the right amount of cut, because you can pretty much put it dead center. It's going to be maybe a little, you can hear in my video that I listened to the sound of the Ombre video, the difference between the 335 and the Les Paul lead tone. The 335, it cuts a little more, but that's because I moved the mic in a little bit to the center. And I also upped the gain on the 335, but the tone control, I think, stayed the same on the amp. So you'll hear the difference in moving the mic there. But listen to those guitar sounds and see if you think in isolation, you can hear them in that video. You can hear the sound of that mic, and you can hear if there's any air around the sound. I didn't add any echo or anything to it. So listen to the sound of, maybe you'll hear a touch of early reflection or room, and that's just in here. You know, kind of neat. Somebody corrected me this week because I guess it's a hypercardioid, which is sort of like a figure 8 pattern. I thought that all ribbons were figure 8, and I guess the 160 is hypercardioid, but you know, it still gets a little more coming from behind, I think, than said dynamic. What tube amp would I recommend for home, for metal or rock? For metal, probably a 5150, you know, maybe a lunchbox or something like that. Can you recommend one if you're on a budget? That's a good one. I mean, you could probably find a used 5150 lunchbox reasonably cheap, right? And I think that would be a good metal hard rock. You know, my amp is you could do metal with the PT15, but it's a little more expensive than maybe what you're looking for, because you said you were on a budget. And it's more of a rock amp, I think, than metal, although you can play metal, but I think the 5150 is a good choice. Or maybe the little 6505. Don't they make a small one of those? I would look at those, to be honest. Yeah. How can I build speed and be melodic for solos? Watch the Paul Gilbert videos for speed. As far as melodic goes, learn any Neil Schon solo from, you know, the 70s through the 80s for his take on melody and how he learned the solo to Who's Crying Now, or, you know, any of those solos, and then just try and internalize that stuff. You know, most ribbons are figure 8, says George, but the M160 being an end dress mic is hypercardioid, right? Makes sense. Was I ever a John Sykes fan? I love John Sykes, Strap Matt. He's great. He's got a really, you know, distinctly European badassery to him that I love. You know, missed in Whitesnake, I think, when he wasn't, you know, around anymore. I think that he was a, you know, his melodic sense, you know, is and his fire, really cool. I mean, just, I love his playing on a lot of stuff. I love Blue Murder and you know, the stuff he did on the Whitesnake album or not. It's, you know, it was Whitesnake, it was full 80s hair metal, but his playing is amazing. And the Thin Lizzy, I love what I mean, like, you know, Cold Sweat is one of my favorite. That track just kicks ass. Anybody writing a song about gambling? Only AC/DC and Thin Lizzy did it, you know? I got my money in a suitcase. I'm headed for the big race. I feel a chill down my backbone as I hang up the telephone. That's right, isn't it? That's good stuff. I want to go listen to Thin Lizzy now. Sykes is so awesome, says Strat Matt. I agree. Les Paul neck pickup into a Mason Mark III plus wide slow vibrato. Right? It's great. Vibrato over a whole step, as my friend used to say, like Ethel Merman. Yeah, good stuff. Go listen to some Ethel Merman now. Pete Thorn, what's best for HSS 250K or 500K pots, says Quentin. You get the 500K, but then you have the switch to 250K, which is, there's a way to do that so that the when you go to the single coils, they see the right load. You just have to, there's a way to do it. I don't know exactly how you do it, but a tech knows how to do stuff like that. One of my thoughts on Bernie Marsden, I don't know, cool early, you know, the early stuff he did with that little band from California, you know, cool. 121, somebody saying, you mean internalism, talking about ribbon mic, good stuff. Oh yeah, my knees hurt. Of course, you know I'm going to lose because gambling's for fools. Okay, we got to give it up. So Motorhead, Thin Lizzy, and AC/DC. Great songs, right? Who takes the cake? What's better, Ace of Spades, Cold Sweat, or of course there's the Jack, but I was thinking more about what's the AC/DC song I'm thinking of? Sin City. I'm going in the Sin City. I'm going to win. That's great. Okay, tall person's got to go, so that means I got to go too. He says, have a good week, and I agree. Loser by the Dead. Really? Different though, right? I'm talking about like that kick-ass, you know, late 70s, dirty rock and roll. You seemed like Ernie Ball for expression pedals in past videos. Is that still the case? I do like Ernie Ball, but I used mainly for my expression pedals for the last number of years has been a Roland. It's just the Boss, the small one, the FV. I've used that for a number of years, and Mission before that. So that's what's been on my board since I used to use Ernie Ball expression on my board 2010, something like that. And then I moved to the Mission pedals for a few years, and now it's been Roland ever since I redesigned my board. They work really good when they're small. That's the main thing. Have you ever custom ordered a guitar and regretted the spec that you chose? I hear it's common for Kiesel customers to spec up the guitar and regret what they ordered. That's Angus. That can happen. My recommendation to you, especially if you do it with a Sir, is ask John if you have that opportunity. If you have any question, it's a great thing to ask, you know, your dealer if they could somehow ask him his recommendation. He has great, you know, I remember Guthrie saying once, like, you know, a certain guitar that he had, this is a reflection of what I do when I spec out a guitar. And another one, he'd say, this is a reflection of what comes out if I ask John Sir what I should do. And then he tells me, and he liked the John Sir one more than the one that he assumed, you know? And I think that that's a really good, I was having trouble finding a neck shape I liked. I remember, and John recommended the Even C Slim to me. And I said, I don't like slim necks. It's not slim. Don't worry about it. You're going to like it. I can tell by what you're saying. And I got it and I was like, oh, he's right. And before that, I'd tried maybe 3 different neck shapes or something from them, and I just didn't bond with them. And he told me what to do, you know. Also tone wood. He's, you know, I was asking him about ebony recently on a guitar, speccing it out, and he goes, don't do it. It's going to be too bright for you, you know, single coil kind of thing. I was asking about single coil on the neck and stuff. He said, the single coil ebonies. It's, you know, and all right, I'm not going to do it. I was doing it more for the look than anything, like wondering about a real dark fingerboard with a certain guitar. And he said no. And so, yeah. Pete has expensive taste in studio monitors, says SG Design. Not really. I've got the Barefoots, but I've also got my Adams. They're $1,500 for the pair, for the Adams. You know, not too bad. Medium price, right? You know, it's pretty easy to spend $4 or $5 grand, $6 grand on a pair of studio monitors. So, all right, you guys, I got to split. Love y'all. Everybody have a great week. I'll see you next week. I'll put up some stuff on my social media if I got to change the time or do anything, because there's a little bit of question about what's going on this week now. It's a little bit in hearing the rumblings in the air about some stuff I might have to do. So we'll see. But I should be here. If you don't hear from me, I'll be here. Okay. Rock on, rockers.